Chapter 101. You two seem to be having a good conversation. Just then, a man's voice sounded from behind the tree. Before I could react, Suri quickly rushed in front of me, shielding me behind him. He shouted in the direction of the voice, "Who is it?" A figure walked out from behind the tree. It was none other than Han Hao. Han Hao stood in front of me and Suri. He looked at us and said, "Xiao Li, can I speak with you alone?" I hesitated and lowered my head. Suri turned to look at me and said, "Miss Lung, do you want to speak with him?" I looked up at Suri and said, "You go do your work. Don't worry, he's not a bad person." Suri nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll go do my work. Call me if you need anything." With that, Suri left, leaving only me and Han Hao. I turned around and sat on the rattan chair across from the rose pond. I looked at Han Hao and said, "What do you want?" Han Hao walked in front of me and suddenly squatted down. He took my hand, pulled up my sleeve, and gently stroked my wound. He lifted his head and looked at me with a pained expression. "Does it hurt?" I shook my head and looked at him. "It doesn't hurt. It's almost healed. It's fine." Han Hao took my hand and looked at me. He reached out and touched my face. "Xiao Li, can you give me some time to talk to you? If you want to confess to me, then don't." "I won't agree." Han Hao suddenly raised his head and kissed me directly on the lips. I didn't have time to react. I stared at him with wide eyes. I reached out and pushed Han Hao's shoulder, but he held me in his arms. He held me so tightly that I couldn't struggle. I quietly felt Han Hao's warm lips warming my cold heart. After a while, Han Hao reached out and held me in his arms. He leaned his head on my shoulder and stroked my hair. "Xiao Li, be with me." I sighed. "I'm sorry, Han Hao. I really can't promise you. Not before, not now, and not in the future." Han Hao looked at me. "Why? Do you dare say that you don't have me in your heart?" I looked hesitant. I didn't know what to say. I avoided Han Hao's gaze. He touched my face and said, "Xiao Li, look at me." I turned to look into Han Hao's eyes. His gaze was sincere. He looked at me and said, "I won't force you to do anything that you don't want to do. I just hope that you can give me a chance to take care of you. Even if I can only quietly accompany you, I'll be satisfied." I sighed and looked at Han Hao. "I really can't promise you. Whether it's you, Xiao Ke, Xin Yao, or me, I can't promise you anything. I can't let our relationship become a stalemate. That's definitely not the problem. Is there something that you can't tell me? Can you tell me? I'll share it with you." I was very conflicted. I couldn't tell him that I was pregnant. I kept my mouth shut, not knowing how to open it. It was at this moment that a voice rang out from the depths of the garden, connected to the house. "Big brother Han Hao." Han Hao stood up and looked in that direction. Someone walked out from the depths of the garden. It was none other than Xin Yao. Xin Yao stood there and looked at us. Her face was full of tears. She looked at me and said softly, "Sister-in-law." I stood up and looked at Xin Yao. I felt very awkward. Xin Yao. Xin Yao didn't move. She just stood there, tears flowing from the corners of her eyes. Han Hao and I stood in front of her, not knowing what to say. Xin Yao wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. She forced a smile and looked at us. "Brother Han Hao, sister-in-law, I'm sorry. I just got here. I didn't mean to eavesdrop on your conversation." I looked at Xin Yao and my heart ached. It seemed that what I didn't want to happen had happened. Han Hao suddenly said to Xin Yao, I think it's time to tell you. I think you know that the one I like is Xiao Li. I know you like me. I tried to like you, but I couldn't. Xiao Li has been in my heart for a long time. I'm sorry." Han Hao's eyes were full of guilt. Xin Yao lowered her head. I was very worried and walked towards her. I raised my hand and wanted to touch her hair. I could feel her twitching and my heart was also very uncomfortable. Suddenly, Xin Yao opened her mouth and said, I know that you like sister-in-law. I also know that I can't replace sister-in-law's position in your heart. Every time I see you and sister-in-law together, you smile very happily. But when you're with me, if you're not reading a book, you're playing with your phone, and your face is also expressionless. Although I know the truth, my heart still feels very uncomfortable. I gently stroked Xinyao's hair. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say. Han Hao walked over to us. He looked at Xinyao and said, "Xinyao, I know how you feel about me. Before Shaoli got married, I did have feelings for her. But after she got married to Duanmu Kei, I hid my feelings for her. A while ago, when I found out that she and Shao Kei were going to get divorced, my feelings for her became stronger and stronger. That's why I confessed to her. It's because I want to take care of her. She needs someone to take care of her the most right now." I turned around and looked at Han Hao. I signaled him not to agitate Xinyao anymore. Xinyao suddenly raised her head and hugged me. She leaned on my shoulder and cried loudly. I hugged her tightly. I didn't expect that the person who didn't want to hurt her the most would become the one who hurt her the most. My heart was filled with guilt. I could only quietly accompany her and give her a little bit of comfort. Just like that, I stood there with Xinyao in my arms for a while. Han Hao quietly stayed by my side and didn't say anything. After a while, Xinyao raised her head. I helped her wipe the tears on her face. Xinyao looked at me. Her eyes were still as gentle as ever. She looked at me and said, sister-in-law, no matter what, I like you. I want to be with you. Although I like Gij Han Hao likes you very much. Since my brother doesn't cherish you, I also hope that you can seriously consider Gij Han Hao. I believe that he will love you very much, just like how I love you. Hearing Xinyao's words, I felt even more uncomfortable. I stroked Xinyao's hair and said, silly girl, don't think too much. I don't have the mood to think about feelings for the time being. Hearing me say that, Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. His eyes flashed with disappointment, but he didn't say anything. Xinyao held my face. After she calmed down, she looked at me and said, sister-in-law, can you promise me something? No matter what it is, can you promise me first? Chapter 102. I sighed and looked at Xinyao. If you want me to be with Han Hao, I won't agree. Xinyao looked at me. Sister-in-law, you have to promise me that you will take good care of yourself. No matter what happens, no matter who you meet, you have to take good care of yourself. No matter who is by your side in the future, you can't let yourself be wronged. Because if I see you being wronged, my heart will hurt too. I touched Xianyao's crying face and said, okay, I promise you. Don't worry, I will take good care of myself. I turned and looked at Han Hao. Han Hao, talk to Xianyao. It's getting late. I'm going back. Then, I turned and walked past Han Hao, heading to the living room. On the way back, my mood was very complicated. It wasn't that I didn't have Han Hao in my heart, it was just that I was pregnant and couldn't accept Han Hao. I didn't want my child and me to be a burden to him. As I spoke, I walked up the stairs and arrived at the bedroom door. Suddenly, I wondered if Duanmu Kei was still in the bedroom. Whatever, I would have to face it sooner or later. I pushed open the bedroom door and entered the room. Duanmu Kei was lying on the bed, his face pale and his forehead covered in sweat. I hurried to his side and wiped the sweat off his face. It was cold. Duanmu Kei's brows were tightly furrowed. He looked really uncomfortable. As I wiped the tears off his face, I softly called out his name. Shao Kei, wake up. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Shao Kei, can you hear me? Duanmu Kei didn't respond. His eyes were tightly shut, and he still looked like he was in pain. I was a little worried. Just as I was about to turn and call the housekeeper, Duanmu Kei reached out and grabbed my arm. I turned around and saw that his eyes were still tightly shut. He kept calling, wifey, wifey. I sat next to him and held his hand tightly. Looking at him now, I was very worried. How could this happen? I held his hand and wiped the sweat off his forehead again and again. Gradually, his expression became less painful. I heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he was fine. However, he was still holding my hand tightly. I didn't want to let go. I was afraid that I would wake him up. It wasn't easy for him to fall asleep. If I were to wake him up again, he might feel uncomfortable. Just like that, I didn't know how much time had passed. I held Duanmu K's hand and lay next to him. Unknowingly, I fell asleep. This was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in the past few days. It was as if I had returned to the time when Duanmu K and I were still loving each other. It was as if I could see that gentle and handsome face that had stayed by my side and never left. When I woke up again, it was already evening. There was no light in the room, so it was dark. I opened my eyes and saw a handsome face in front of me. He was staring at me with his eyes wide open. I was so shocked that I sat up. My face was red, and I didn't know what to do. After thinking for a while, I crawled out of his arms and sat in front of the dressing table. I fiddled with the things on the table, but I didn't say anything. I glanced at the time. It was already past dinner time. I looked at Duanmu K through the mirror. He was leaning against the headboard and looking at me expressionlessly. I blushed again. With my back to him, I said, "You must be hungry. Do you want to eat something? I'll go downstairs and make it." Duanmu K still didn't say anything. He just sat there and looked at me expressionlessly. I sighed. "Forget it. I'll go make something and bring it to you." I stood up and walked to the door. "Wait a minute." Duanmu K called out to me. I turned around and looked at him. He looked at me and said, "I want to eat something hot." I looked at him and smiled. Then, I turned and walked out of the bedroom. I went to the kitchen and cooked 2 bowls of vegetable porridge. I added some side dishes and brought them to the bedroom. After entering the bedroom, I brought the porridge to Duanmu K and handed him the bowl. He wolfed it down. I sat on the edge of the bed and drank the porridge while looking at him from time to time. I had only taken a few mouthfuls, but he had already finished the entire bowl. Then he looked at my bowl with eager eyes. I immediately understood what he meant. I handed my bowl to him and said, "You can eat it." Duanmu K hesitated for a moment, but still took the bowl. In a few mouthfuls, he finished the 2 bowls of porridge. I took the empty bowl and brought it to the kitchen. After I cleaned up, I cut some fruit and brought it to the bedroom. Duanmu K sat at the head of the bed and ate the fruit while looking at me. His eyes had become very strange. They weren't gentle like before, nor were they cruel like before. It was as if he was savoring me, which made me feel very uncomfortable. I reached out and touched his forehead. His temperature was normal, and he wasn't sweating anymore. It seemed that he was fine. I suddenly remembered that he was sweating, so I touched the bedsheet. It was damp. I sighed and took out a set of Duanmu K's clothes from the wardrobe. I also took out a bedsheet, a quilt cover, and 2 pillowcases. I handed the clothes to Duanmu Quebec. Looking at him, I said, "Go take a shower. When you're done, just throw the clothes into the washing machine." Then, I pulled the quilt aside and began to take off the quilt cover. Duanmu K hugged the clothes and looked at me. He didn't move. I looked at him and said, "Go quickly. Do you want to use the bathtub? If you do, I'll go fill the tub." I put down the quilt cover and walked to the bathroom. Suddenly, Duanmu K stopped me. He said, "Why are you so good to me?" I stopped in my tracks. Hearing him say that, my heart ached. Yes, why am I so good to him? A man who once loved me and hurt me. Why am I so good to him? I sighed and said, "It's nothing. It's just a small matter." I walked to the bathroom, turned on the tap, and began to fill the tub. I sat by the tub and watched the water flow. My complicated heart gradually calmed down. Duanmu K stood at the bathroom door and looked at me. He was naked, and he put his new clothes on the sink. He took off his dirty clothes and threw them into the washing machine. I raised my head and glanced at him. Then, I stared at the tap, waiting for it to finish. I'll do it. You go and rest. Duanmu K's tone became very gentle. It suddenly made me feel uncomfortable. I looked at him and thought, if he wants to do it himself, then let him do it himself. I stood up and looked at him. You're sweating so much. Don't soak for too long. Call me if you need anything. I walked past him. He suddenly pulled me and said, Don't go. If you're not busy, come and help me wipe my back. Chapter 103. I turned around and looked at Duanmu Quebec. I didn't understand what he was thinking. Duanmu K seemed to see my confusion. He looked at me and said, If you think it's too much, then forget it. I was stunned. I looked at him and said, It's not too much. You wash up first. I'm going to change into something more comfortable. I looked at him and walked out of the bathroom. I stood at the bathroom door and heard the sound of running water. It seemed that Duanmu K had already started showering. I sighed and walked to the wardrobe. I opened it and took out one of Duanmu K's jerseys. I changed into it. It was his fault for tearing my clothes to shreds. I had no choice but to wear his jerseys. After changing my clothes, I went to the bathroom door. I knocked on the door and Duanmu K said from inside, Come in. I pushed the door open and walked in. He was lying in the bathtub with only his head sticking out. I glanced at him and didn't say anything. I took a wet towel and wrapped it around my hand. I looked at Duanmu K and asked, Are you done? Can I start now? Duanmuk opened his eyes and nodded at me. Then he turned his back to me and said, That's enough. I reached for a small wooden stool and placed it behind him. I sat in front of his back and used the wet towel to gently wipe his back. I asked softly, How's the temperature? Moderate or slightly cool or hot? Duanmu K turned his head and looked at me. Not bad. You can use more strength. Oh. I agreed and gently wiped his back. Looking at Duanmu K's back, I felt that this figure was very familiar. It didn't seem like a stranger anymore. It was as if the person I used to know had returned. For a moment, I was stunned and stopped what I was doing. Duanmu K turned his head and looked at me. He asked in confusion, What's wrong? Why did you stop? His words brought me back to reality from my reverie. I returned to my senses and continued to brush against his back. Not much, I whispered. Duanmu K thought for a while and said to me, Dad, Mom and Xinyao told me about our marriage. Although I didn't admit it at first, I've gradually gotten used to it. There were several times when I was half asleep and half awake, I could always feel your figure appear in my mind. I've asked them, but they couldn't tell me what we did when we were together. When I think about it, my head hurts. There were several times when I deliberately forced myself to try hard to remember, but I couldn't remember. Hearing Duanmu K's words, my heart was a little excited. It seemed that he still had an impression of me in his mind. But thinking that he had decided to divorce me, my heart was very sad. I said softly, Don't think about it. Since you've decided to give up, what's the point of thinking about it again? It's useless. So, when I was with you, I had a lot of good memories. Duanmu K turned to look at me, his eyes sparkling with expectation. I raised my head and looked at him. I pulled his arm and rubbed it gently. It's all in the past. Why are you still talking about it? Don't talk about it now, and don't talk about it in the future. It's meaningless. Duanmu K tilted his head and looked at me. That's not right. Didn't you want me to recover my memory the most? Once I regain my memory, I might withdraw my divorce request and treat you as well as you described. Isn't that what you want? She looked at Tang Meng and said. I sneered and looked at Duanmu Quebec. That's right. That's what I want. But how can you guarantee that you'll recover your memory? Even if you do recover your memory, what can you do when we're divorced? What's the point of recovering your memory when you're married to someone else? Duanmu K thought for a while. He looked at me and said, You're right. I'm an irresponsible person. Hearing Duanmu K say that, I silently told him in my heart that he wasn't an irresponsible person. It was the exact opposite. He would always put other people's benefits first. He would always think about other people, and he rarely cared about himself. I finished wiping both of Duanmu K's arms. I took off the towel, washed it, and handed it to Duanmu Quebec. I said to him, "I'm done wiping. You can wipe the rest yourself." Duanmu K didn't take the towel. He looked at me and said, "Since you've already wiped my back and arms, you don't need to do the rest. Wipe them all." I smiled and looked at Duanmu Quebec. "You don't need me to do that. You can do it yourself. Besides, I have a lot of other things to do." He glanced at me. I thought he would let go of my hand and let me go, but he let go of my hand. He scooped up a handful of water from the bathtub and splashed it on my clothes. The clothes I had just changed into were drenched again. I stood in front of Duanmu K with a red face and looked at him. I said angrily to him, "Duanmu K, what do you want?" Duanmu K pointed at me and said, "My clothes are wet. I guess my body is wet too. You should wash too." Duanmu K's divine theory had convinced me. I didn't know how to answer. I stood there like a drowned rat. Seeing that I didn't move, Duanmu K stood up from the bathtub. He didn't wear anything and stood naked in front of me. I didn't like the scene, but I couldn't just cover my eyes. I turned my head and didn't look at him. I blushed and said to Duanmu K, "You should hurry up and wash up." Duanmu K stood in front of me and didn't say anything. At this moment, his hand grabbed the front of my basketball uniform and pulled it up. He was going to take off my clothes. I was so scared that I quickly moved back and pulled at my clothes with all my strength. I looked at him with a terrified expression and said, "What are you doing?" Duanmu K walked in front of me and looked at me. "You're wet. If you don't take it off, you'll catch a cold. You've just recovered. I don't want you to go back to the hospital right after you came back." I refused in my heart. I hugged my chest and hid in the corner of the door. I looked at Duanmu K and shook my head. "There's really no need. There's really no need." However, Duanmu K didn't want to let me go. He walked in front of me and took off his clothes. Then, he reached for my pants. I was afraid that he would be impulsive and hurt the baby in my stomach. I quickly grabbed his hand and said, "I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself." Then, under Duanmu K's watch, I obediently took off all my clothes and stood naked in front of Duanmu Quebec. It was true. Logically speaking, we were an old married couple who had lived together for a while. This shouldn't be a big deal. However, I was still a little embarrassed to be naked like this. Chapter 104. Duanmu K looked at me standing naked in the corner. He nodded in satisfaction. He pulled me to the front of the bathtub and draped a towel over me. He drained all the water he'd soaked in and brushed the corners of the bathtub. Then, he filled the bathtub with water. He stood up and looked at me. "Get in." I didn't understand Duanmu K's actions. I looked at him in confusion. What is the meaning of this? Duanmu K paused and looked at me. I wasn't feeling well in the afternoon. I was sweating all over. "You were by my side the whole time, right? I'm guessing you're covered in my sweat. You should wash up." I understood Duanmu K's meaning. I shook my head and looked at Duanmu K saying, "No need, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'll go out first." With that, I retreated towards the door. Duanmu K suddenly crouched down and picked me up horizontally. He took off his slippers and stepped into the bathtub. Then, he placed me in the bathtub. Since the bathtub was small, I didn't have time to react. Duanmu K placed me in front of him. With my back facing him, I could feel his strong heartbeat. Neither of us spoke. At that moment, it felt as if the space around us had frozen. Duanmu K wet the towel and gently wiped my back. A few days ago, when I was fighting with Duanmu K and fell down the stairs, the injuries were still very obvious. I could feel Duanmu K's fingertips gently grazing the scars on my back. It was just a simple physical touch, but I could vaguely feel his sadness. But I couldn't accept this kind of warmth. The him now and the him a few days ago were two completely different people. I didn't know which was the real him. I didn't move. I sat in Duanmu-K's arms and let him stroke my back. He stroked the bruises that he'd caused. Because my shoulders weren't soaked in the water, I felt a little cold. I lowered my head and hugged my shoulders. Just then, Duanmu-K hugged me from behind. In an instant, my entire body warmed up. My face grew redder and redder. I wanted him to let me go, but I didn't know what to say. Just as I was hesitating, Duanmu-K suddenly opened his mouth and said, "I'm sorry." I didn't say anything. I knew that he was apologizing to me for falling down the stairs with him 2 days ago. I was indeed heartbroken towards him, but what was this tenderness of his? I didn't know either. I could only comfort myself again and again, telling myself that the Duanmu-K now wasn't the same as before. It was impossible for him to love and care for me. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sigh. My sigh stunned Duanmu-Quebec. He was still hugging me. "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I moved Duanmu-K's hand away. I turned around and sat across from Duanmu-Quebec, looking at that familiar yet strange face. I said, "I think the two of us need to talk." "Okay, go ahead." Duanmu-K looked at me, his expression becoming a little serious. I sorted out my emotions. I looked at Duanmu-K and said, "Tell me, why are you suddenly so nice to me? Didn't you annoy me to the point that you wanted to kill me? Why are you so passionate now?" Duanmu-K sighed. He looked at me and said, "I have indeed forgotten everything that happened between us. But when I think of you, my heart doesn't feel pain, but happiness. I'm becoming more and more interested in you. I admit that I did hate you. I did do a lot of things to hurt you. I won't deny that. It's too late. It's already too late. There are only 12 days until our divorce date. I don't have many requests. I just hope that you can let me spend these 12 days in peace. I'll be satisfied. I don't want to have anything to do with you. As for whether you want to remember it or not, it doesn't have much to do with me, because I don't have you in my heart anymore." It took a lot of courage for me to say these words, but as soon as I said them, my heart broke painfully. I stood up from the bathtub and calmed myself down. Looking at Duanmu-K, I said, "I'll go out first." With that, I stepped out of the bathtub and walked towards the door. "You're not a woman who can lie," Duanmu-K said from behind me. "Your tears betrayed you. You say you have no feelings for me, but in your heart, you can't bear to part with me. It seems that you have feelings for me." I stopped and turned to look at Duanmu-Quebec. "You're wrong. I have feelings for the old Duanmu-K, not for a cold-blooded monster like you." Duanmu-K smiled coldly. He looked at me and said, "Since you said that, it seems that I should keep you by my side so that I can slowly torture you. How about this? Since I can divorce you, I can also choose not to. The right is in my hands. I believe that you can do that, but you can't restrict my freedom. Since I agreed to divorce you, I can also choose not to continue being with you. You don't have to threaten me. Since it's come to this, I have nothing to be afraid of. All right, I'm going to sleep." Then, I walked out of the bathroom. The moment I closed the door, my heart started to beat faster and faster. It felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. I didn't know if my words had angered him. I hoped not. Right now, nothing was more important than the child in my belly. As long as he didn't hurt my child, or rather, our child, it would be fine. Although he didn't know, I didn't know how to face Duanmu-K and the entire Duanmu family. I calmed down and walked to the side of the bed. I lay down on the side of the bed where I had laid the quilt. As I crawled under the quilt, a wave of sleepiness hit me. I prepared to go to sleep early. After all, my body was still very weak. Just as I was half awake, I vaguely felt Duanmu-K walk out of the bathroom and lie down on the bed. I didn't say anything and just moved to the side of the bed. I was afraid that if I squeezed him, he would find a chance to fly into a rage. I could feel Duanmu K tossing and turning for a while, then he stopped moving. I guessed that he had gone to sleep. Before I could finish my thoughts, Duanmu K's arm pressed against my body. His hand happened to cover my breasts. I blushed and reached out to pat his hand. "Take it away," I whispered. Duanmu K didn't speak, nor did he take his hand away. I was a little angry. I turned to look at him and said angrily, "What do you want to do?" Without waiting for me to finish, Duanmu K's lips had already deeply kissed mine. Chapter 105. I stared at Duanmu K with my eyes wide open. He closed his eyes and kissed me deeply on the lips. I didn't push him away. I didn't know why I didn't reject him. Maybe my hatred for him couldn't overcome the feelings I had for him deep in my heart. After a while, Duanmu K opened his eyes. He looked at me in surprise, then immediately pushed me away and turned his back to me. I was stunned by his actions. I reached out to touch his arm, but I stopped. I turned around and leaned against the side of the bed. My head kept replaying the scene that had just happened, and I didn't feel good about it. After a while, Duanmu K asked me softly, "Are you asleep?" "No. I didn't do it on purpose. I don't know why I did it. My body couldn't help but get close to you." "I'm sorry," Duanmu K explained calmly. Indeed, I had expected this answer. I sighed and said softly, "It's fine." Although I said it was fine, my heart was bleeding. "It's fine. Go to sleep." Hearing Duanmu K say that, I didn't say anything. I had been with him for a long time, and I understood his temper and personality. However, my feelings for him had never disappeared. Just like that, the two of us slept with our backs against each other. When I woke up the next day, he was no longer in bed. Looking at the empty room, my heart was filled with sorrow. In about 10 days, this place would no longer belong to me. Even if I didn't want to leave, what use would it be? There was nothing left for me to stay here. After I simply freshened up, I walked out of the bedroom. Coincidentally, I met Xinyao, who was about to go eat breakfast. We looked at each other and I could feel that Xinyao was stunned for a moment. Then, she became very embarrassed. After that, she had a very difficult expression. I guessed that Han Hao had already told her about it yesterday, but she just couldn't accept it. I took a step forward and walked in front of Xinyao. Holding her arm, I smiled and said to her, "Good morning, girl." Xinyao saw that I took the initiative to greet her. She smiled and said, "Good morning, sister-in-law." Seeing Xinyao smile, my heart felt a lot better. I looked at Xinyao and touched her face. "How did you sleep last night? Your eyes are a bit red and swollen, and there are dark circles under your eyes. Did you not rest well?" "It can't be." Xinyao quickly ran to her bedroom and took out a small mirror. Then, she looked at herself in the mirror and looked up and down. She looked at me with an aggrieved expression and said, "Oh my God! It was really swollen. I really have dark circles." I shook my head helplessly and patted her shoulder. "Don't worry, I have an eye cream in my room. It's pretty good. After breakfast, come to my room and I'll give it to you." "Wow! This is great. Thank you, sister-in-law." Xinyao hugged me and acted like a spoiled child. I gently stroked her hair and thought about yesterday's events. I said to her softly, "Girl, Han Hao didn't say anything to hurt you yesterday, right?" Xinyao looked at me. At first, she was stunned. Then she sighed and said, "He didn't say anything. Han Hao Gij and I have already talked about it." Xinyao moved closer to my ear and whispered, "No matter what, if Gij really wants a divorce, I really hope that you and Han Hao Gij can be together. No matter what, you are my sister-in-law." I shook my head and looked at Xinyao. "I won't choose him." Xinyao grabbed my hand and said to me calmly, "Sister-in-law, you have to believe me. I've already let it go. I also know that Han Hao Gij has feelings for you. Of course, I also know that you have Han Hao Gij in your heart. So, sister-in-law, I'm really doing this for your happiness." Before I could answer, I heard a voice behind me. You're already looking for your next home? I turned around and saw that it was Yu Xin. She crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, looking at us. Yu Xin sneered and looked at me. It's no wonder. You lost favor with Duanmu Gij, so naturally you want to find someone else. It's not your fault, but you're destroying your best friend's happiness. It's not right. Before I could answer, Xinyao walked in front of me. She looked at Yu Xin and said fiercely, Yu Xin, you don't need to drive a wedge between us. This is between me and my sister-in-law. No matter what, it's better than a bad woman like you who steals someone else's husband. Yu Xin sneered and looked at Xinyao. You're really stupid. You just gave your beloved man to her. You don't think this is a coincidence, do you? Don't you think this was all planned by her? Yu Xin pointed at me and asked Xinyao. Xinyao glared at Yu Xin. She calmed down and then said loudly to Yu Xin, compared to you, I believe in my sister-in-law more. No matter what. As long as my sister-in-law and Han Hao are together, I will wish them happiness. This matter has nothing to do with you. I'm in a good mood today and don't want to fight with you. Please leave. Xinyao pointed at the stairs and signaled Yu Xin to leave. The three of us looked at each other like this. At this time, Duanmu K walked up the stairs. He looked at Yu Xin, then looked at me and Xinyao and said coldly, Why aren't you guys going down to eat breakfast? Dad and Mom are already rushing you. Hurry up and go down. Xinyao glared at Yu Xin, then pulled me and said, Sister-in-law, let's go eat. Don't pay attention to her. Xinyao pulled me past Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu K's eyes never left me. As Xinyao and I walked down the stairs, we heard Duanmu K's voice behind us, Xin, do you have something going on today? If you don't, come with me to a place. Hearing Duanmu K's words, my heart was shocked. I turned my head and looked out of the corner of my eyes. Yu Xin was snuggling up to Duanmu K's arm like a little girl, but Duanmu K's expression was still cold. Although I felt uncomfortable, I didn't show it. After Xinyao and I had a simple breakfast, she pulled me back to her bedroom. Since Duanmu K tore my clothes, I didn't have any clothes to wear. Xinyao helped me look through her wardrobe. As she picked out clothes, she told me a lot of things that happened between her and Han Hao when they were young. The two of us talked very happily. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Xinyao called out to the door, Who is it? Please come in. The housekeeper opened the door. She stood at the bedroom door and looked at me and Xinyao. She said, young mistress, young Master Han Hao has arrived. He's downstairs in the living room. Young mistress personal bodyguard, Suri, is also there. Young Master Han Hao told me to come up and tell you. Chapter 106. I nodded and looked at the nanny. Okay, I got it. You can leave now. Tell them we'll be right down. The nanny nodded, closed the door, and left. Xinyao took out some clothes from the wardrobe and looked at me. Sister-in-law, let's go out for a picnic today. It'll be just the four of us. We won't bring my brother. I don't like him recently, so I don't want to see him. I looked at her with some hesitation. I don't think that's a good idea. I said I won't leave this house before we get married. If we go out to play, that's fine. What's that? If you don't leave this house, then you won't live apart. You can't even go out to play. It's fine. If my brother doesn't agree, I'll tell him. Xinyao took out a set of exquisite casual clothes and looked at me. Sister-in-law, why don't you wear this? It'll suit us when we go out to play today. I picked up the clothes and looked at them. This is too pretty. You should keep it for yourself. Xinyao pushed the clothes to me and looked at me. No. I want you to wear it. You'll definitely look good in it. I smiled and looked at Xinyao. Okay. I took Xinyao's clothes and changed into them. After Xinyao changed, we packed our bags and walked out of the bedroom. When we went downstairs, Han Hao and Suri were really sitting in the living room waiting for us. I didn't know what they were talking about, but they seemed to be very excited. When they saw me and Xin Yao come down, they stood up. Han Hao looked at me and said, "How was it? Did you rest well yesterday?" I looked at Han Hao and said, "It's nothing. It was pretty good. You guys came early. Just now, the girl told me that the weather was pretty good today and wanted to go out for a picnic. How about it? Do you guys have time to do me the honor of going out together?" Han Hao smiled, then looked at us and said, "Since Miss Lang and Duanmu are interested, then of course I have to serve you to the end. Isn't that right, Suri?" Han Hao gave Suri a meaningful glance. Suri immediately understood what Han Hao meant. He looked at me and said, "Of course." Looking at Suri's fawning expression, we all laughed. Right at this moment, the sound of a chainsaw came from outside the door. I looked at the door and asked, "What's that noise?" Han Hao glanced at the door and then said to me, "I don't know." When I arrived, I saw several workers walking towards the park. Walking towards the park? I looked at Han Hao in confusion. "That's right. Look, it's over at the rose garden." Han Hao sat on the sofa and picked up a cup of coffee. "Oh no!" I shouted. I threw down my backpack and ran towards the rose garden. I hoped that what I was thinking hadn't happened. I ran to the rose garden pond. Several workers were using a chainsaw to sweep up the roses. Broken flowers were scattered all over the pond. It was a complete mess. What I didn't want to happen happened. I shouted at them, "Stop!" The workers looked at me blankly and stopped what they were doing. I looked at them and shouted, "Who is it? Who told you to do this?" One of the workers looked at me and said, "The housekeeper arranged for us to come here. He told us to tear down the rose garden pond." I calmed myself down and looked at them. "All right," I said. "Stop right there. How much did the housekeeper give you? Give me a price, and I'll pay. Take the money and get out of here." I pointed toward the door. "That won't do. If you do this, it won't be good for me. Won't it affect our work?" The worker was still not happy. Just as I was about to open my mouth, Duanmu K suddenly came out from the side door of the house. He stood under the tree and looked at me. "I told them to come here." I looked at Duanmu K, my face ugly. I asked him calmly, "Why did you do this?" Duanmu K looked at me. "No reason. I don't like this rose garden pond. I'd rather build a fountain. I don't like that rattan chair either. I'll have to trouble you to tear it down for me later." Duanmu K pointed at the rattan chair I used to rest in. It seemed that he wanted to destroy all my memories. I quickly walked forward and stood in front of the rattan chair. I looked at Duanmu K and said, "No. You can't tear it down." At this moment, Xian Yao and the others arrived. They saw me standing in front of the rattan chair and several workers in front of me. Suri quickly stood in front of me. He looked at the workers, afraid that they would hurt me. "What's going on here?" "Brother. Don't tell me you want to tear it down." "This won't do, brother. This is sister-in-law's favorite place." Xinyao looked at Duanmu K, and also pleaded for me. Duanmu K looked at me calmly and said, "But this isn't my favorite place. If I say tear it down, then tear it down. Hurry up and tear it down. Otherwise, I won't pay you." With that, the workers started the chainsaw again and swept away the roses. "No." I bypassed Suri and ran towards the rose pond. I tried to stop them, but I didn't expect to be hugged by Han Hao. Han Hao hugged my waist from behind. I waved my arms, trying to break free from Han Hao's embrace. However, Han Hao held me very tightly. No matter how hard I struggled, I could only watch as the roses in the garden were destroyed before my eyes. My tears couldn't stop flowing. I collapsed in Han Hao's embrace. I didn't know what to do. I cried myself hoarse. Everyone stood there and looked at me. Han Hao turned me around and hugged me tightly. He stroked my hair and said softly, "Don't cry, don't cry. There will be more in the future." I tugged at Han Hao's clothes, my mind blank. Exine Yao stood next to me and kept wiping my tears with a tissue. Her face was full of worry. At this time, a worker asked Duanmu K, "Young Master Duanmu, the flowers in the flower pond have been cut. Do you still want to tear down the rattan chair? Tear it down." The words seemed to have been squeezed out of Duanmu K's mouth and fiercely pierced my ears. I turned around and looked at Duanmu Quebec. I shook my head at him and said, "Don't tear it down anymore. I'm begging you, okay?" Duanmu K just stood there and looked at me. He didn't say a word. The workers felt a little embarrassed. But in the face of monetary benefits, they chose to listen to Duanmu K's instructions and walked towards the rattan chair. At this moment, Su Rue quickly walked over to the rattan chair. He stood in front of the chair and looked at the workers. He then looked at Duanmu K and said loudly, "If any of you dare to tear down this chair, I'll tear him down." Duanmu K raised his head and looked at Suri. "Suri, right? This is my Duanmu's home. No matter how you look at it, it's not your place to interrupt. Didn't your master teach you etiquette?" Chapter 107. Suri's face turned red. He glared at Duanmu K, but he didn't say anything. Han Hao hugged me. He looked at Duanmu K and said, "Xiao K, you've gone too far. That rattan chair isn't a problem. Why do you have to tear it down?" Duanmu K looked at Han Hao, his eyes sharp. He said to Han Hao, "How long are you going to hug my woman? We haven't even divorced yet. How dare you act so recklessly?" I pushed Han Hao away and walked in front of Duanmu Quebec. My face was still wet with tears. I looked into his eyes and pointed at the unrecognizable flower pond. "Duanmu K, you've already destroyed my most beloved flower pond. It seems like you don't care about me anymore. How could you be so cruel?" Duanmu K sneered. "There's nothing cruel about it. If you Exine hadn't told me that this place had been remodeled, I wouldn't have known that this place had been built here. Originally, this place was supposed to be a fountain, but it was turned into a flower pond instead. I really don't like flowers, and it was ugly, so I tore it down. It's that simple." "Shut up." I lowered my head and said to Duanmu Quebec, "Anyway, you won't be staying here for long. I can do whatever I want. You can't do anything about it." Duanmu K reached out and lifted my chin. He looked into my eyes and said softly, "So, you don't have to worry about it. There's no need to look like a madman here. After all, you're still the young mistress of the Duanmu family. Pay attention to your status. Don't ruin the reputation of the Duanmu family." Hearing Duanmu K's words, I couldn't suppress the anger in my heart. I reached out, raised my arm, and with a pa sound, a loud slap landed on Duanmu K's face. Duanmu K stood there, holding his face, and blanked out. "Xiao Li." I heard Han Hao's voice. He ran to my side and quickly pulled me into his arms. Suri also rushed in front of me and shielded me behind him. Xinyao also ran over and pulled me back. Before I could react, Duanmu K was already in front of us. He reached out and grabbed my collar. I was so scared that I closed my eyes. Duanmu K's actions were stopped by Suri. Han Hao took the opportunity to carry me and retreat. "Let go of me." Duanmu K shook off Suri's arm and stood there, glaring at me. Han Hao looked at Duanmu K and said, "Xiao K, you've gone too far. How could you hit her?" Duanmu K glanced at Han Hao, then looked at me and said, "What I do with my own woman, when did it become your business? I don't want to lose my temper with you. Take Xinyao and leave quickly." Han Hao didn't let go of me. He looked at me and gently stroked my hair, indicating that I shouldn't be afraid. Then he raised his head and said to Duanmu K, "You don't cherish her, but I do. Since we've already decided to divorce, you shouldn't interfere with who Xiaoli chooses to be with." "Han Hao, don't force me." Duanmu K's eyes widened as he roared at Han Hao. Han Hao sneered and looked at him. "Today, I must take Xiaoli away. I've had enough. I don't want to see you torture her anymore." Han Hao turned and glanced at Xinyao. Xinyao, please tell uncle and auntie that I borrowed Xiao Li. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility. Can you take responsibility? Duanmu Ke wanted to rush over again, but Suri stopped him. Duanmu Ke roared at Suri, "Get lost." Han Hao looked at Suri and said, "Suri, ignore him. After I leave, go back to the Lang residence and tell uncle and auntie what happened. Tell them that I took Xiao Li away." Then, Han Hao picked me up and walked towards the door. He looked at me, his eyes full of tenderness. He said to me, "I'm going all out. For you, anything is worth it." Han Hao carried me to the door. I wrapped my arms around Han Hao's neck and looked behind him. I saw Duanmu Ke's frowning face. Was he reluctant? Or was he willing? The destruction of the Rose Pond had pretty much destroyed my love for Duanmu, Quebec. After leaving the Duanmu residence and getting into Han Hao's car, I was like a zombie. My eyes were empty, and my mind was blank. I couldn't remember anything, and I didn't want to remember anything. When we arrived at the Duanmu Ke residence, Han Hao pulled me to the living room. Han Hao's father was sitting in the living room. Han Hao looked at his father and said, "Dad, this is Cold Glaze. She'll be staying with us for a few days. Dad, I'll take her upstairs first." "Stop right there." Han Hao's father stopped him. Han Hao stopped and turned to look at his father. Then, he looked at me. He called a housekeeper over and asked her to arrange a room for me. Then, he gently patted my shoulder and turned to walk back to his father. The housekeeper brought me to a guest room at the corner of the stairs. She simply decorated the room, then closed the door and left. I was curious about what Han Hao's father wanted to talk to him about, so I quietly opened the door a little. I could hear the conversation between Han Hao and his father downstairs. Han Hao's father asked, "Hao heir, do you know what you're doing? You brought back Duanmu Ke's wife. Duanmu Tochio's daughter-in-law. Duanmu Ke just called me and asked if Cold Glaze was in our house. I said no. Now you've brought her back. What's going on? Hurry up. Hurry up and send her back." "Dad, I won't send her back. She's already preparing to divorce Duanmu, Quebec. She's free now. Also, I don't want to hide it from you. I'm going to pursue Cold Glaze. I want to marry her." Han Hao, who had always been gentle, acted as if he had lost his mind. His tone was firm and resolute. "You're hopeless. Have you considered our family before doing this? What if the Kurosawa really comes looking for trouble with our family? How do you want me to protect this family? How can I protect you?" Han Hao's father's words made sense. According to Duanmu Ke's personality, he definitely wouldn't let his family off if I stayed here. I could faintly hear Han Hao sigh. He continued, "Dad, no matter what you say, I'll stick to my principles. I must be with Cold Glaze. No matter who opposes me, I'll persist. Dad, don't say anything. Don't worry, I won't let you and Mom be in danger. In 2 days, I'll move out with Cold Glaze." "What? You want to move out? Do you think moving out will solve everything? Duanmu Ke won't chase you to the ends of the earth? Son, don't be so naive." Chapter 108. Hearing Han Hao's father say that, I didn't want to be a burden to others. I opened the door and was about to go out when I heard Han Hao say to his father, "Dad, I've never begged you before. I beg you to believe your son this once. I will never do anything to hurt you and Mom. Please, Dad." After a long time, Han Hao's father didn't say anything. After a while, Han Hao's father finally opened his mouth and said to Han Hao, all right. I only have one son, so I can only listen to you. All right, since you're so confident, then we'll do as you wish." "Really? That's great. Thank you, Dad. Then I'll go upstairs first." Hearing him say that, I quickly returned to the room, closed the door, and sat down on the chair. Not long after, the door was pushed open and Han Hao walked in. He looked at me and said excitedly, "Xiao Li, I have good news to tell you. My father has agreed to let me pursue you. That's great. Seeing Han Hao's happy expression, I couldn't feel happy at all. Han Hao looked at me and suddenly realized that he hadn't considered my feelings. He put his hands on the armrests of the sofa, and his face was very close to mine. He looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, Xiaoli. I didn't consider your feelings. I'm sorry. Don't be sad." He reached out and gently touched my face. Feeling the warmth of his palm, I closed my eyes, and tears flowed down again. Seeing this, Han Hao hugged me in his arms and gently kissed my forehead. He stroked my hair and said softly, "Don't cry. I'm here. Don't worry and stay here for 2 days. I'll accompany you well." Han Hao held my face and looked at me with his gentle eyes. "Oh, right. Don't you like roses? My garden is a little small, so I made a small rose pond for you. You can go and see it. I don't know what color roses you like, so I planted some of each color. I don't know if you like them or not." Hearing Han Hao say that, my tears flowed down again. He gently wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes, and his expression was very gentle. It made me regret not choosing such a man in the first place. I looked at Han Hao and said, "Han Hao, why are you so good to me?" Han Hao held my face and gently kissed my lips. He looked at me and said, "Xiaoli, I really like you. I don't know why, but when I don't see you, I always think about you. Sometimes, I find it ridiculous. When I think about you and Duanmu K having to spend the rest of your life together, my heart aches. But when I heard that Duanmu K wanted to divorce you that day, I suddenly felt that my chance had come. I swore that I would get you, that I would give you happiness, and that you wouldn't be wronged anymore. These are my true thoughts, so I have to be good to you. Maybe my family isn't as rich and powerful as the Duanmu family, and I'm not as perfect as Duanmu K, but my feelings for you won't be any less than his feelings for you, or even more than his." Hearing Han Hao say that, I reached out and hugged Han Hao. At that moment, the warmth of Han Hao's embrace made me feel very safe. Han Hao hugged me tightly. He stroked my hair and said, "Xiaoli, don't be afraid. In the future, I will be with you every day. Don't worry, I won't let you leave me again. This time, I will hold you tightly in my arms." I nodded vigorously and snuggled into Han Hao's embrace. Actually, I was conflicted. I couldn't give up my feelings for Duanmu K, but I couldn't resist Han Hao's pursuit of me. I didn't know if what I was doing was right or wrong. Forget it, let nature take its course. At this moment, my phone rang. I took it out and saw that it was Xinyao. I picked up the phone. "Hello, Xinyao. Sister-in-law, are you okay? Have you arrived at Han Hao Gij's home?" Xinyao asked worriedly. "NN, I've arrived. Don't worry, everything is fine on my side. How are you? Did Dad and Mom make things difficult for you? Did Duanmu K hurt you?" I was very worried about Xinyao's situation. "Don't worry, sister-in-law. Everything is fine on my side." Gij was very irritable at first, but I subdued him later. I also talked to Dad and Mom, saying that you're going to Han Hao Gij's home to play for 2 days. They won't think too much about it. Suri also went back to the Leng family. I just talked to him on the phone, and he's fine on his side. Xinyao reported the situation to me. "That's good. It's good that you're fine." My heart was finally relieved. "But sister-in-law, there's something I'm sorry about." Xinyao lowered her voice and said to me, "What is it?" "That." Xinyao's words were obviously hesitant. The rattan chair by the rose pond, I couldn't keep it. Gij still tore it down. I held the phone in my hand and lowered my head. Seeing this, Han Hao hugged me. I knew he was comforting me. Hearing that I didn't answer, Xinyao continued, "I later found out that it was Uxin who instigated Gij to tear it down. Actually, now that I think about it, Gij didn't like to stroll around the garden. Otherwise, how would he know what was there in the past and what is there now? It's obvious that someone told on Uxin, so Gij did it." I sighed and said softly, "Forget it. It's all in the past. If you want to tear it down, then so be it. It doesn't belong to me anymore. Sister-in-law, don't think about it. Have a good rest and have fun for 2 days. When you want to come back, you can come back. Don't worry, I'll take care of Gidge. Bye. Then, Xinyao hung up the phone. After I hung up, I sat there with a serious expression. Han Hao looked at me. It seemed he'd heard what we were talking about. I raised my head and looked at him. Han Hao, I'm a little tired. I want to lie down for a while. Okay. Han Hao helped me stand up. He lifted the blanket, and I took off my shoes and lay on the bed. He gently covered me with the blanket and then sat on the chair next to the bed. He stared at me and stroked my hair from time to time. I looked at Han Hao and said softly, "Why don't you go back and rest for a while? You've been busy all morning." Han Hao shook his head and looked at me. "It's okay. You go to sleep. I just want to look at you like this." I looked into Han Hao's eyes. His eyes were always so clear and gentle. I held Han Hao's hand and said, "Then it's settled. Don't go. Stay here. If I don't see you when I wake up, I might be scared." Chapter 109. Han Hao held my hand and sat quietly next to me, gently patting my back. Gradually, I felt sleepy, closed my eyes, and fell asleep. I didn't know how long I slept, but when I woke up, Han Hao was lying on the edge of the bed, also asleep. Looking at Han Hao's sleeping appearance, I suddenly felt very happy. I gently touched Han Hao's handsome face. His sleeping appearance was just as beautiful as usual. Unknowingly, I gradually fell into a trance. After a while, Han Hao's body moved, and he woke up. Looking into his hazy eyes, I actually blushed a little. I turned my head, not daring to look at Han Hao directly. Han Hao gently stroked my hair and asked, "How did you sleep? Did you feel better?" I nodded and answered, "Much better." "It's okay, don't worry." Han Hao raised his hand to look at his watch. "It's almost time for lunch. The housekeeper should have made a lot of delicious food. Do you want to go down and eat together? If it's not convenient for you, I'll bring some for you to eat, okay?" I shook my head and looked at Han Hao. "No, I don't really want to eat, so don't bother." "Then you should at least eat a little. Otherwise, I'll be heartbroken. You can't bear to see me heartbroken, right?" Han Hao leaned over and gently kissed my forehead. He raised his head and looked at me. Stroking my face, he said, "What should I do? I just like you. Even if it's just looking at you, I feel very happy." Hearing Han Hao's words, my face instantly turned red. My eyes drifted a little. I looked at him and said softly, "Han Hao, didn't you tell me that you have a pool of roses at home? Can I go take a look?" "Ah, was that true? But my rose pool isn't that big. You won't like it, right?" "No, you can go down later. I'll go take a look first. Recently I've been too busy, I haven't had time to take care of the flower pond. Wait for me." Han Hao finished speaking and was about to get up. I grabbed his hand. Han Hao turned to look at me. I looked at him and said, "Let's go together." "I don't mind." He hesitated, but still helped me up from the bed. The two of us walked out of the bedroom one after the other and headed downstairs. As soon as we reached the living room, we saw Han Hao's father walking out of the study room. It seemed he was going to the dining room to eat. When he saw me, his eyes stopped on my face. I hurried forward and stood in front of him. "Hello, Uncle Han Shu. I'm sorry to disturb you." "Don't worry, Shaoli. I didn't think you'd grow so big. It's been a long time since I've seen you." Han Hao's father's gaze softened. "Yes, I've heard my father talk about you, but I don't have much of an impression of you. That's for sure. When I went to your house as a guest, you were only a child of 2 or 3 years old. But since then, Hao especially liked to play with you." It turns out that he had already begun to like you since then. Hearing his father say that, my face instantly turned red. I lowered my head, feeling very embarrassed. Han Hao seemed to notice my embarrassment. He pulled me to look at his father and said, "Dad, you're talking nonsense again. You're going to eat, right? Hurry up. I'll take Xiaoli for a walk in the garden." I knew he was trying to change the subject. Han Hao's father looked at Han Hao, then at me. "Xiaoli, your father and I have known each other for a long time. We've been good friends for many years, so we're not strangers. I'll be frank with you. I think you know the consequences of leaving the Duanmu house without permission. If the Duanmu K can't hold back, he may push Hao Er and I into a dead end. I don't think that's what you want." I nodded and said, "Uncle Han Shu, I understand what you mean." He patted my shoulder and said, "Of course, I'm not forcing you to go back. Duanmu Li Xiong just called me and he already knows that you're here. He also agreed to let you stay here for 2 days. Of course, after 2 days, you have to leave. Otherwise, I don't know what Duanmu K will do to Hao Er. I don't care anymore. Hao Er's mother and I have already decided to go abroad to enjoy life. But Hao Er is different. He's at the peak of his career. If you have him in your heart, how can you bear to let him be surrounded by enemies?" "Dad, why are you saying all this?" Han Hao was a little agitated. I forcefully pulled his arm, indicating that he shouldn't say anything. I raised my head and looked at Han Hao's father. "Uncle, I understand what you mean. Don't worry, I won't let the Duanmu K have the chance to ruin your happiness. I'll go back to the Duanmu's house in the morning the day after tomorrow." "Thank you, Xiaoli." Han Hao's father nodded to me and entered the dining room. Han Hao pulled my arm and walked towards the garden. As soon as we walked out of the front door of the house, he stood in front of me and looked at me. "Xiaoli, why did you agree to my father's request? Why do you have to go back? Don't you know that home is dangerous for you?" I smiled at Han Hao and said, "You're overthinking it. How could there be any danger? It's already been so long." I'm guessing that his anger towards me has pretty much dissipated. When I get back, his attitude towards me might even change. "Do you believe what you just said?" Han Hao asked me. "Or do you still have feelings for him and can't let him go?" I suddenly froze. That's right, even I couldn't believe what I had just said. I calmed myself down, looked at Han Hao and said, "I know, this is impossible. But other than using this method to numb myself, what else can I do? He clearly doesn't have feelings for me anymore, but my heart still feels like it's waiting for something." Han Hao reached out and pulled me into his arms. "Okay, don't think about it. I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do. I just want you to be well and slowly accept me. Then, I will be satisfied." Listening to Han Hao's heartbeat, my heart felt more and more at ease. I nestled in Han Hao's arms. I suddenly wanted to give myself to him completely. Maybe he really was a man worth entrusting my life to. I hugged Han Hao tightly. Han Hao was shocked by my initiative. He hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Xiaoli, why are you so proactive today? You make me scared." "Huh? Scared of what?" I lay on his chest and felt his excited heartbeat. Han Hao hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm scared that you'll leave me. I'm scared that I won't be able to hold you tightly in my arms like this anymore." Chapter 110. No, but please give me some time. Let me try to accept you. I leaned into Han Hao's embrace. Although my face was red, I couldn't help but speak my mind. Han Hao hugged me tightly and gently stroked my hair. "Thank you, Xiaoli. Thank you for accepting me." I raised my head and looked into Han Hao's eyes. I smiled and said, "Didn't you say there was a rose pond? Where is it? Take me there." Han Hao pulled me deeper into the garden. Suddenly, he went behind me and covered my eyes. I was very surprised. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Sure, don't talk. I'll take you there and give you a surprise." Han Hao covered my eyes and gently leaned against my back. He was afraid that I would fall. After walking for a while, Han Hao suddenly stopped. He covered my eyes again and said, "All right, we're here. But I'm a little nervous." "Nervous about what?" I asked, puzzled. Han Hao sighed and said softly, "I'm afraid you won't like it." I chuckled and said, "I haven't seen it yet. How do you know I won't like it? Hurry up and let me see it." Han Hao hesitated for a moment, then softly said to me, "Okay." Han Hao slowly removed his hands from my eyes. I opened my eyes and saw a beautiful rose pond in front of me. Although the pond wasn't big, the flowers were blooming beautifully. They had been manicured into a heart shape. From the inside to the outside, each circle had a different color. It was very beautiful. Han Hao stood behind me and looked at my shocked face. He reached out and hugged me tightly. He whispered in my ear, "Is it very small? You don't really like it, do you?" I shook my head and said to Han Hao, "No, I like it very much. I like it very much." Han Hao kissed my cheek and said, "It's good that you like it. My efforts weren't in vain." I turned around and looked at Han Hao. "Did you do all of this?" I asked softly. Han Hao nodded and said to me, "Because one time I went to the Duanmu family's house, I heard you mention the rose pond, and I knew the origin of the rose pond. I knew you longed for that kind of beautiful love, so after talking to Dad, I built a similar rose pond in our family's garden. Because I didn't trust anyone else to do it, I arranged for workers to build the pond, and then I personally went to the flower market to pick out a batch of the best rose sprouts and planted them in the pond according to my own ideas. I thought I would make a mess of it, but looking at it now, it's not bad. At least the shape is there, haha." Han Hao rubbed his head and stood in front of me with a silly smile. I didn't know why, but tears fell from the corners of my eyes. Looking at Han Hao's silly smile, I suddenly felt very happy. When Han Hao saw me cry, he frowned and reached out to wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes. Then, he looked at me and said, "Shaoli, what's wrong? Did I do something to upset you again? Don't cry. Seeing you cry really hurts my heart." I reached out and hugged Han Hao tightly. I lay in his arms and cried very sadly. Han Hao didn't say anything. He just held me in his arms and softly said, "Shaoli, it's okay. Don't cry. You still have me. Shaoli, don't be afraid. I'll always be by your side." Han Hao, thank you. I don't know how to express my feelings, but I'm willing to accept you. I'm willing to be with you. Even if it's just as a friend, I'm willing. My tears soaked Han Hao's shirt. Han Hao hugged me tightly and softly said, "That's enough. That's enough. Shaoli, as long as you're willing, I won't marry anyone else. I won't let you suffer for others. Don't worry, I'll definitely be with you." Just then, I suddenly thought of something. I pushed Han Hao away and stood in front of him, keeping a certain distance from him. I looked at Han Hao and said, "But there's something I want to tell you. I don't want to hide anything from you. Of course, you can choose not to be with me because of this. I won't. There's nothing that can stop me from marrying you. You're more important to me than anything else. I'm pregnant." I lowered my head, not daring to look at Han Hao. "What did you say?" Han Hao looked at me with a puzzled expression. "I'm pregnant." My tears couldn't stop flowing. I lowered my head and said, "It's Xiao Kei's." Han Hao didn't say anything. He stood in front of me, still looking at me with a surprised expression. I understood that he couldn't accept this fact. This was within my expectations. Although I wasn't surprised, my heart still hurt. No matter what, I didn't want to hide anything from him. After a while, Han Hao walked in front of me. He held my face and looked into my eyes. He said softly, "It's not your fault. I guess Xiao Kei doesn't know either. No matter what, as long as it's your decision, I'll believe it's the right one. Even if you want me to die for you, I'll do it without hesitation." I reached out to touch his face and looked at him. "Silly, what are you talking about? How could I do that to you? I just think it's unfair to you. After all, this child isn't yours. Even if you're willing to accept it, will your parents accept it? This is my business. You don't have to worry about it. Take care of your body and give birth to the child. I'll take care of you and the child. Han Hao stroked my hair and comforted me softly. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and nodded. This long-awaited feeling of peace made me feel comfortable and at ease. It was as if I had found a harbor to dock at. Han Hao and I strolled around the garden for a while before we returned to our room. He was worried that I would be tired, so he insisted that I should sleep. I couldn't persuade him otherwise, so I had to compromise. He made me lie down on the bed and covered me with the blanket. Then, he sat down next to me and looked at me quietly. I held Han Hao's hand and looked at him. Are you tired? Han Hao looked at me. Yes, but when I see you, I don't feel tired anymore. My face was a little hot. I moved to the center of the bed and patted the spot next to me. I looked at Han Hao shyly and said, "Why don't you come up and lie down for a while? It's better than sitting down and resting." Han Hao looked at me with an expression of disbelief and asked, "Huh? Is that really appropriate?" I pursed my lips and rolled my eyes at Han Hao. "If you don't want to, then forget it. I'm going to sleep. Don't disturb me. Good afternoon." Then, I turned my back to him and closed my eyes. Chapter 111. Han Hao was stunned. Then, he jumped onto my bed and lay down next to me. He said softly, "Shaoli, I won't move. I'll just quietly stay by your side and watch you sleep." Han Hao lay down next to me. I could feel that he wasn't asleep. Hearing him say that, I suddenly felt very happy. Han Hao didn't say anything else. The quiet atmosphere became tense. After thinking for a while, I turned to face Han Hao. Han Hao was startled and sat up. He looked at me and asked softly, "Are you feeling uncomfortable? Or did I disturb you?" I smiled and shook my head. I pulled him to lie down. The two of us lay face to face. Looking at him, I felt that he was very nervous. Han Hao's face was a little red. Looking at his bashful appearance, I couldn't help but laugh. Han Hao looked at me with a puzzled expression. "What's wrong? Is there something on my face?" Han Hao reached out and touched his face. Looking at his comical appearance, I didn't know what to say. I moved forward and fell into his arms. Han Hao was shocked by my sudden movement. He was stunned for a moment. Then, he reached out and hugged me. I leaned against his chest. I could feel his heart beating very fast, and his body temperature was rising. I lifted my head from his embrace and looked at his rosy face. I smiled and asked, "Han Hao, why is your heart beating so fast?" Han Hao's eyes were wandering. He didn't dare to look at me directly. He said softly, It's nothing." At first glance, I knew he was lying. I reached out and gently touched his face. "You're not telling the truth. It's not like that. I just don't know how to say it." Han Hao's face was red, but his eyes were sincere. "But you promised me that you would tell me everything." "You haven't said anything yet." Han Hao wanted to say something, but stopped. "You what?" It's my first time. It's my first time lying on the bed with a girl." Han Hao pulled me into his embrace, his heart beating even faster. Hearing Han Hao's words, I couldn't help but laugh. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and softly asked, "Xiao Hao, let me ask you a question. How many girlfriends have you had?" Han Hao thought for a while. He gently kissed my forehead and said, "You're the first." I raised my head and looked at him in surprise. "No way. You're such an excellent man. How could you not have a girlfriend? I thought you'd have at least 8 or 10. Han Hao pursed his lips and looked at me. "How is that possible? I've always kept a low profile, and I don't like to go to places with a lot of girls. Of course, the Black Nightmare group is so busy, and I don't have time to go to parties or anything like that. There are very few opportunities to come into contact with girls, so it's normal that I don't have a girlfriend. The woman who becomes your girlfriend must be very happy. She has such a handsome, quiet, and caring boyfriend. She'll definitely be spoiled to the heavens. Aren't you my girlfriend? Han Hao hugged me tightly in his arms. He whispered, Xiaoli, do you know? This feeling right now is like a dream to me. I'm really afraid that when I wake up, you'll disappear from my arms. I just want to stay by your side. It doesn't matter if you really love me or not. As long as you don't push me away, I'm really satisfied. Really, you're better than anything else. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and nodded gently. I understand. Soon, it'll be over soon. I said to Han Hao. Han Hao gently stroked my hair and patted my back. Be good. Sleep for a while. You need rest now, not only for yourself, but also for the baby. Sleep. I'll hug you to sleep. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and nodded. I kissed Han Hao's body fragrance and listened to his heartbeat. Not long after, I fell asleep. I didn't know how long I slept, but it was a very good sleep. Perhaps it was because my heart was no longer lonely, and it had found its harbor. When I woke up again, I was still in Han Hao's arms. He was also asleep. Looking at him sleeping soundly, I thought he was very cute. I didn't have the heart to wake him up, so I quietly leaned against his chest and looked at him. I felt very happy. Just then, there was a knock on the door. The knocking woke Han Hao up. He rubbed his eyes and asked the door, Who is it? What's the matter? Young master, master wants you to go downstairs quickly. He said that young master Duanmu Ke is waiting for you downstairs. The housekeeper's voice came from outside the door. Duanmu Ke. Hearing Duanmu Ke's name, Han Hao and I woke up. We looked at each other. He looked at the door and said, Okay, I got it. Tell my father that I'll go down immediately. Okay. The housekeeper answered and left. I looked at Han Hao and felt a little nervous. I didn't know what to do. Han Hao saw that I was worried. He gently stroked my face and said, Xiaoli, don't be afraid. I'm here. When I go out, don't go out. Stay in the bedroom. Don't go out. If Xiao Ke sees you, I'm afraid he'll hurt you. I thought for a moment, then looked at Han Hao and said, How about I go? I'm afraid he'll hurt you. Han Hao shook his head. He won't. Don't worry. Wait for me to come back. Han Hao kissed my forehead and then walked out of the room. I didn't feel at ease, so I opened the door a crack. Although I couldn't see them, I could hear what they were talking about. I heard Han Hao's voice. Xiao Ke, how come you have time to come find me at my home today? Don't talk nonsense. Hand over cold glaze. I'm here to pick her up. Hearing Duanmu Ke's voice, I couldn't help but shiver. I'm sorry, Xiao Quebec. I don't want to lie to you. Xiao Li is with me, but I don't want to give her to you. You've already hurt her too much. I don't want her to get hurt again. Right now, I just want to protect her. Han Hao's words were very firm. I heard Duanmu Ke laugh coldly. He said, You think you can do that? You want to protect her? What ability do you have to protect her? What qualifications do you have to protect her? Do you really think you can give her the life she wants? Let me tell you, we haven't divorced yet. I can change my mind at any time. Do you think you'll really get her if you take her away? Stop dreaming. Han Hao. You used to be very rational. How did you become so ignorant? My father always thought about you and Han Shu. Do you think you're worthy of my father's care for you? Chapter 112. Hearing Duanmu Ke's sarcastic words, I'm sure Han Hao and his father didn't feel good. At this time, I heard Han Hao's father say, Xiao Ke, I think there might be some misunderstanding between you and Hao Er. Regarding Xiao Li, I received a call from your father. He already agreed to let Xiao Li stay at my house for 2 days. I also told Xiao Li that she would only stay at my house for 2 days. When the time is up, I'll arrange for a car to send Xiao Li back. What do you think? Han Shu, this matter isn't a misunderstanding. As long as Han Hao hands over the cold glaze, I won't cause trouble for your family. If Han Hao insists on not handing over the cold glaze, Han Shu, you know my temper. I don't even know what I can do. Duanmu Kei's words clearly carried a threatening tone. Xiao Kei, if you have a problem, then come at me. Don't hurt my father. If you have a problem, then come at me. I felt that Han Hao already had a temper. I was suddenly worried that he wouldn't be able to control himself. Xiao Kei, you're going too far. Even if you don't look at this, you have to look at the relationship between our families. Especially since you and Hao Er grew up together, right? Han Hao's father's tone had already softened. I heard Duanmu Kei laugh coldly. He said, Han Shu, it's too late for you to talk about relationships with me. As far as I know, Han Shu, you have a company under the name of the Kurosawa, right? But after operating it for so long, how come you haven't received any funds or financial reports from that company? Presumably, it's all under your name. There's such a thing? Hearing Duanmu Kei's words, it seems like he caught on to someone else's weak spot. Dad, is that true? Han Hao asked in disbelief. Hao I'll tell you more about this when I have the chance. Han Hao's father's tone of voice had completely lost all confidence. Cut the crap. Hurry up and hand over cold glaze. I don't have time to waste on you. If you don't want things to get worse, hurry up and bring her out. Duanmu Kei was getting impatient. I heard Han Hao say, Don't worry. I won't give her to you. It seemed that Han Hao was determined not to hand me over to the Duanmu Quebec. I was afraid that the Duanmu Kei would do something to Han Hao and his father. I pushed the door open and ran downstairs. Wait. I ran downstairs and stood in front of them, looking at them. Duanmu Kei was standing across from Han Hao. His expression was very serious. It seemed that he was really angry. I stood in front of Duanmu Kei and looked at him. Han Hao didn't bring me here. I insisted on coming here. Don't make things difficult for Han Shu or Han Hao. Everything was my own idea. They couldn't persuade me otherwise, so they compromised. Duanmu Kei sneered. It's only been a day, and you're already siding with an outsider? You haven't even divorced yet, and you've already found your next home. Xiao Kei, don't speak so harshly. How can you face Xiao Li like this? Han Hao was very angry. He pulled my arm and pulled me behind him. Then, he stood in front of me and stared at Duanmu Quebec. Han Hao, the one who has the least right to talk about me here is you. I treat you as my best friend. Not only did you not stand on my side, but you also stole my woman. Do you think this is something a brother should do? Duanmu Kei also stared at Han Hao. Don't talk about it. I roared angrily. I looked at Han Hao. Although I was very reluctant to part with him, for the safety of their family, I decided to agree to go back with Duanmu Quebec. I looked at Duanmu Kei and said, I agree to go back with you. That's good. Duanmu Kei looked at me, then walked towards the door. As he walked, he said to Han Hao's father, If you want to thank someone, you should thank Xiao Li. She helped you keep your secret. Of course, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. The Black Nightmare Group is such a large enterprise, it doesn't make much of a difference to a small enterprise like yours. I turned to look at Han Hao. The tears at the corners of my eyes couldn't stop flowing down. I looked at him and said, I have to go. Although I really want to stay here for a few days, it seems that I can't. As long as I can protect you, I'll be satisfied. I forced out a very ugly smile. Han Hao looked at me and sighed. Then he turned and ran towards Duanmu Quebec. He shouted, Xiao Kei, wait. Duanmu Kei stopped and turned to look at Han Hao. Han Hao said to him, Xiao Kei, can you let Xiao Li stay here for one night? Han Hao's tone sounded like he was begging Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu Kei laughed coldly. He looked at Han Hao and said, What? Are you begging me? Yes, I'm begging you. Can you let her stay here for one night? I'll send her back tomorrow morning. Han Hao lowered his head. His tone was sincere, but my heart ached when I heard it. For me, He was begging Duanmu K so humbly. This wasn't what I wanted. No. Duanmu K bluntly refused Han Hao. Han Hao raised his head and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Why? Why not? You think I'll give you a chance to be alone with my woman and then let you cheat on me? Stop dreaming. I won't help you, at least not now. Duanmu K raised his head and looked at Han Hao arrogantly. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say. At this moment, a car drove into the courtyard. A person ran out of the car. It was none other than Xinyao. Xinyao ran into the living room. She ran past Duanmu K and glared at him. Then she ran in front of me and Han Hao. She grabbed my hand and looked at me. Sister-in-law, how are you today? Did you have a good rest? I'm fine. But why are you here? I asked, very puzzled. Xinyao pulled my arm and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Then she looked at me and said, Dad told me my older brother ran away. I thought he must have run to your place, so I quickly ran over here to take a look. I was afraid he would cause trouble for you and Han Hao Gij. Xinyao turned her head and saw Han Hao's father. She greeted him cordially. Duanmu K looked at Xinyao and said impatiently, Why are you here? Hurry up and go home. Why can you come, but I can't? Dad told me to bring you home because he was afraid you would cause trouble for Uncle Han Shu. Besides, aren't you always with you, Xian? How come you have the mind to care about sister-in-law Xiao Li? Seriously, what's wrong? Do you want to have a foot in two boats? Xinyao didn't give Duanmu K any face. Duanmu K looked at Xinyao with a red face and said, Hurry up and go home while I'm in a good mood. Don't provoke me. Chapter 113. Bro, Dad told me to take you home. If you don't, he'll personally come and take you home. When that happens, things might get even worse. Xinyao looked at Duanmu K with a sinister smile. Really? Duanmu K looked at Xinyao with disbelief. Xinyao laughed coldly. She looked at Duanmu K and said, Of course it's true. Would I dare to joke about our dad? It looks like Duanmu Tachio was also angry. Otherwise, how could he threaten Duanmu K like this? Duanmu K thought for a moment, then turned to me and said, You, come home with me. Han Hao suddenly rushed in front of me and blocked my path. He looked at Duanmu K and said, No. No, Han Hao, why do you want her to stay here for the night? What do you want to do to her? Or what do you want to do? Duanmu K was angry again. Xinyao suddenly grabbed Duanmu K's arm and said, Let's go, bro. Dad already agreed for sis-in-law Xiao Li to stay here for the night. Don't stop her. With that, Xinyao pulled Duanmu K's arm and walked towards the door. Duanmu K struggled as he looked at Han Hao and said, Han Hao, it's only for one night. If you dare to do anything to her, you and I can't exist under the same sky. Aya, let's go. Xinyao pulled Duanmu K away. Before leaving, she quietly turned around and gave us a look. Seeing the two of them walk out of the room, my heart calmed down a bit. I let out a long breath and sat down on the sofa. I turned to look at Han Hao and his father. They also sat down on the sofa. It looks like Duanmu K gave them a lot of pressure. I stood up and looked at Han Hao's father. I bowed deeply and said, Uncle Han Shu, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble. I didn't think he would be so extreme. Han Hao's father looked at me and said, It's okay, Xiao Li. Don't think too much. That's just how his temper is. It's good that Xinyao pulled him away. Otherwise, I'm really afraid he would do something. Han Hao looked at his father and said, Dad, don't worry. I won't let Duanmu K hurt Xiao Li, and I definitely won't let him hurt our family. I looked at Han Hao and said with guilt, Xiao Hao, I'm sorry. I didn't think things would turn out like this. How about I go back now? Then I stood up from the sofa and walked towards the door. Han Hao suddenly reached out and grabbed me. Don't go. It's very late. Don't go back. He already agreed to let you stay here for the night. Don't go. Han Hao's father also looked at me and said, "That's right, Xiaoli. It's getting late. You should stay and rest. Tomorrow, I'll have Hao take you back. It's okay. I'll take responsibility if anything happens." I turned and looked at Han Hao. Then I looked at Han Hao's father and said, "Thank you, uncle. I'm sorry to disturb you." "It's okay. Hao, hurry and take Xiaoli upstairs to rest." Han Hao's father finished speaking. Han Hao pulled me upstairs. When we returned to the bedroom, Han Hao closed the door behind us. He turned and hugged me tightly. He stroked my hair and said softly, "Xiaoli, I was just scared. I was so scared that he would do something to you." I patted his back and comforted him. "Don't be scared. Aren't I fine now? It's okay. It's all in the past. You know, I was really scared that he would take you away from me. I've been waiting for you for so long, and now you're finally by my side. Although there's only one night left, I still can't bear to leave you." I didn't know why, but when I heard Han Hao's words, my heart ached. I patted Han Hao's back and said, "Wait a little longer. In 11 more days, I'll be free. Wait for me to come back." "I will. I will definitely wait for you to come back." Han Hao cupped my face and gently kissed my forehead. I looked up at Han Hao's handsome face and said softly, "I want to take a hot bath. Can you help me run the water?" "Okay." Han Hao carried me horizontally and placed me on the bed. Then, he took out a set of women's pajamas from the wardrobe and put it on the bed. He gently stroked my face and said, "I'm going to run the water now. You can change into these pajamas later. I asked the nanny to buy them for you. I don't know what size you like, but I bought a similar size. I don't know if they fit. You can try them on later. I'm going to run the water." With that, Han Hao turned and walked to the bathroom. I picked up the pajamas Han Hao had prepared for me. The material of the pajamas was very soft and emitted a faint fragrance. I looked into the bathroom and heard the sound of the water running. I suddenly felt very happy. If only I could be with him forever. But I didn't know why, but at the same time, my heart ached. Was it reminding me that Duanmu K was still in my heart? Maybe I never forgot him. Maybe I still loved him. Then what about my feelings for Han Hao? If Duanmu K was two-timing, wasn't I the same? Didn't I like Duanmu K on one side and Han Hao on the other? With that thought, I suddenly felt like a bad woman. At that moment, Han Hao came out of the bathroom. He looked at me, who was sitting on the bed, and said softly, "Xiaoli, I've run the hot water. Come in and take a bath." I stood up from the bed and walked to the bathroom. I wanted to go in and change, but I realized that there was no place to put clothes. I turned and looked at Han Hao with a blank face. Han Hao seemed to understand something. He suddenly turned and said to me, "I won't look. Just change." I was shocked by Han Hao's cute behavior. I covered my mouth and laughed. He didn't know what to do. He said to me, "What are you laughing at?" "I won't look. Don't worry." I looked at Han Hao's back. I believed that he wouldn't peek. I put the pajamas on the bed and stood behind Han Hao. I started to take off my clothes one by one. Han Hao stood in front of me. He kept looking in front of him and didn't turn around to look at me. After I was completely undressed, I stood naked behind him. Han Hao whispered to me, "Xiaoli, I have a question I want to ask you." "What is it?" "You. Aren't you afraid that I'll suddenly turn around while you're changing?" A smile appeared on my face. I reached out and hugged Han Hao from behind. Han Hao was very surprised. I leaned against his back and could feel his heart beating very quickly. I whispered to Han Hao, "I believe you. You are not that kind of person. Because you said that you would not do anything to hurt me, I believe you. Besides, since I have accepted you, of course I am willing to give myself to you." Chapter 114. Han Hao held my hand and said softly, "Xiaoli, thank you for trusting me. But don't worry, I won't take advantage of you at a time like this. You and the baby in your belly are the most important. Han Hao patted my hand gently and said, "Okay, be good. Go take a shower. I'll wait for you at the door. If you need anything, just call me. I'll rush in immediately." "Xiao Hao, thank you." I hugged him tightly, then let go and went into the bathroom. I soaked in the bathtub, feeling the warmth of the hot water. Through the frosted glass window of the bathroom, I could see Han Hao's figure pacing back and forth at the door. He had never left. My heart felt warm. After bathing for almost an hour, I stood up from the bathtub and dried myself. Only then did I realize that I had left my pajamas outside. I stood at the door of the bathroom and called out softly, "Xiao Hao, are you there?" "I'm here. What's wrong?" Han Hao immediately appeared at the door. It seemed that he had been there the whole time and hadn't left. "I want to trouble you with something. I forgot to bring my pajamas in. Can you pass them to me?" "Okay, no problem." Han Hao left the door. It seemed that he was going to get the pajamas. I opened the bathroom door and stood there naked. I watched Han Hao walk to the bed. He bent down and picked up the pajamas on the bed. Han Hao turned and said to me, "Xiao Li, I brought the pajamas." Han Hao turned and saw me standing naked at the bathroom door. He opened his eyes wide and stared at me blankly. He held his pajamas in his hand and looked at my naked body. His face gradually turned red. I looked at Han Hao's shy expression and hugged my arms tightly. I looked at him and said softly, cold, hearing my words. Han Hao finally reacted. He hugged his pajamas and ran in front of me. He put the pajamas on me, then carried me to the bed and covered me with the blanket. His face was still red. He gently stroked my hair and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I don't know why, but I slipped away." I reached out and touched his cheek. "It's okay." Han Hao looked at my arm. I didn't know why, but his face was getting redder and redder. He suddenly stood up and turned his back to me. I looked at his back in confusion. "Xiao Hao, what's wrong?" Han Hao stammered for a long time. He lowered his head and said, It's nothing. I'm going to calm down." As soon as he said that, he quickly walked to the bathroom and closed the door. Then, I heard the sound of running water. It seemed he was taking a shower. I seemed to understand something. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Not long after, the sound of running water stopped. Han Hao walked out of the bathroom. His upper body was naked, and he wore a pair of beach shorts. He stood at the bathroom door and dried his hair. I looked at him and couldn't help but laugh. Han Hao looked at me in confusion. "What's wrong? Why are you laughing so happily?" I hooked my finger at Han Hao, signaling him to come over. Han Hao put the towel back in the bathroom and walked to the bed. He sat next to me and asked softly, "What did you call me for?" "I have something to ask you." "And what's the matter?" Han Hao said while stroking my hair. "Why is your face so red?" I covered my mouth and tried not to laugh. Han Hao was embarrassed by my strange behavior. He blushed again. He turned his face and said softly, It's nothing. I just felt hot." After hearing Han Hao say that, it seemed my guess was right. He had a reaction to me. I covered my face and couldn't help but laugh. Han Hao looked even more embarrassed. He pouted and looked at me. "Laugh again. If you laugh again, I won't be polite to you." After hearing Han Hao say that, I laughed even louder. Han Hao saw that I was laughing so happily. He couldn't bear it anymore. He jumped on me and tickled me. I helplessly begged him for mercy. "I was wrong. I was wrong. Don't tickle me. It's so ticklish." I laughed and struggled, feeling like I was in great pain. Han Hao held my face and looked at me. "Xiao Li, what should I do? I love you so much. Just looking at you like this is enough for me." Han Hao held my face and kissed me deeply. I reached out and hugged him tightly. I didn't want to think about anything else. I just wanted to spend the night quietly with him. Han Hao raised his head and touched my face. He looked at me with gentle eyes. Xiao Li, can I hug you to sleep for the night? I looked at Han Hao and thought for a moment. Then, I nodded. Han Hao lay down next to me. He held me in his arms. Because Han Hao wasn't wearing a shirt, I was pressed against his chest. I could feel the smooth skin of his chest. I patted his back, my heart at ease. Han Hao whispered to me, "What are you doing?" Touching my back. "Are you acting like a hooligan?" I laughed. "Who's acting like a hooligan? You're the one who threw yourself at me. With such a handsome guy by my side, I have no choice but to take advantage of him." Han Hao hugged me and stroked my hair. He said to me, "Time really flies. You have to go back as soon as the sun rises. I always feel like I'm sending you to hell. My heart hurts. What's there to feel bad about? When I go back, I'll tell Xiao Ke that I've decided to be with you. He wants to divorce me so badly, so he probably won't care who I'm with." Han Hao stroked my hair. "Xiao Li, you still have him in your heart, don't you?" Hearing Han Hao's question, I was stunned. I didn't know how to answer. Han Hao continued, "It's okay. Just tell me what you want to say." I sighed and told him, "I don't want to lie to you. I still have him in my heart, especially now that I know I'm pregnant. I can't erase my feelings for him so quickly. After all, I really do love him." "I understand. I won't force you. As long as you're happy, I'm willing to do anything." Han Hao kissed my forehead. This kiss made me feel like I owed him. "Xiao Hao, I hope you can give me some time to truly accept you. Otherwise, this won't be the best decision for you, me, or him. Is that okay? You don't have to be like this. I'll support you no matter what you do. I won't leave you. As long as you remember that no matter what, I'll always be by your side." Han Hao hugged me tightly. Although we shared a bed, Han Hao didn't touch me. He just hugged me tightly. When my heart was cold, he warmed me with his love. Chapter 115. Just like that, Han Hao and I snuggled together and slept through the night. That night, I slept very soundly. I didn't think about anything, and my heart was at ease. The next morning, when I woke up, Han Hao was no longer by my side. His clothes weren't by the bed, either. There was only the towel he'd taken off yesterday draped over the stool. I panicked when I couldn't see him. I quickly got out of bed and ran to the door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, the door opened. Han Hao stood at the door with a sumptuous breakfast. When he saw me standing in front of him with disheveled hair and a dirty face, he was stunned at first. Then he burst out laughing. I pursed my lips and asked Han Hao, "Why are you laughing so happily?" Han Hao brought the breakfast into the room. Then, he reached out and stroked my hair. "You just woke up, right? How was your sleep? How many rolls did you make on the bed with your messy hair?" I pursed my lips and looked at Han Hao. "I just woke up, but I didn't see you. I didn't know you went to get breakfast." Han Hao smiled. He reached out and hugged me. Then, he gently kissed my forehead. He looked at me and said, "Silly, you were worried, weren't you? I didn't leave you. I noticed that your appetite has been bad recently, so I brought breakfast over to feed you personally. I think you'll be able to eat more." I turned to look at the breakfast. It was all my favorite food. I looked at Han Hao. Just as I was about to open my mouth to ask, Han Hao spoke first. "How is it? Is it all your favorite food? How did you know?" I looked at Han Hao in surprise. He stroked my hair and said, "I asked Xinyao, Uncle Lang, and Auntie Lung. They told me, so I wrote it all down." I burrowed my head into Han Hao's arms and said, "Thank you for being so attentive to me. Then you'll have to eat the breakfast I've prepared so carefully, and then I'll feel that my efforts have not been in vain." Han Hao scratched my nose. I nodded and sat down at the table. Looking at the delicious food on the table, I picked up a soup dumpling and handed it to Han Hao. He was stunned. Then, he opened his mouth and ate the soup dumpling. His eyes were fixed on my face. I turned my head away in embarrassment, my face burning. I began to eat. Han Hao sat next to me and stared at me. After a while, he stared at me and said, "Xiaoli, do you know? I really want to be with you like this forever. I want to see you every morning when I wake up. I want to have breakfast with you every day, and then you feed me." "You're right," Gu Nianji said. Hearing him say that, I couldn't help but laugh. I looked at him and said, "Why should I feed you? Aren't you the one feeding me?" After hearing what I said, Han Hao burst into laughter. He said to me, "I was wrong. I was wrong. I'll feed you. I'll feed you." I made a face at Han Hao. Han Hao looked at me and gently touched my face. He said, "But Xiaoli, you're going back soon. Although I don't want to let you go, I know that the best days are yet to come. I'll wait until you get divorced, and then I'll marry you. Okay?" I looked at Han Hao and said, "That's good. You have 10 days to regret it." "I'm not going to regret it. I'm not stupid. You're such a good wife. I don't want to give up." "Okay, hurry up and eat. When you're done, I'll take you back." I nodded and ate all the breakfast Han Hao had prepared. After breakfast, I cleaned up a bit and followed Han Hao back to the Duanmu house. On the way, Han Hao didn't say much, but looking at his expression, I knew that he didn't want to leave. He just didn't say anything. Finally, we arrived near the Duanmu house. Han Hao stopped the car. He sat in the driver's seat and didn't raise his head. After a while, Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. I could see that his eyes were a bit red. I turned around and held his face gently, looking into his eyes. His tears flowed down from the corners of his eyes. Seeing him cry, my heart ached. I reached out and held him tightly in my arms. I patted his back and said to him, "Don't cry. You're hurting me too. It's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay." Han Hao hugged me tightly. "Xiaoli, promise me that you'll come back. Come back to me." I patted his back and nodded. I let go of Han Hao and reached out to wipe the tears on his face. I whispered to him, "Okay, you can stop here. If you go any further, you'll be even sadder. I don't want you to be sad." I kissed Han Hao deeply on the lips. Then, I opened the car door and left without looking back. I took my luggage and walked to the front door of Duanmu's house. As soon as I reached the door, I saw the housekeeper in the garden. I greeted the housekeeper, and the housekeeper opened the door for me. I walked in and walked into the living room. I saw Duanmu K sitting alone on the sofa, waiting for me. I looked at him but didn't say anything. I walked past the sofa with my luggage and headed upstairs. Duanmu K glanced at me and said, "Stop." I stopped and turned around to look at Duanmu Quebec. I said coldly, "What's the matter?" Duan Myuk stood up and walked to my side. He scanned me from head to toe. Then, he leaned against my shoulder and sniffed. Then, he looked up at me and said softly, "You've only been out for a day and you already have the smell of another man on your body." I looked at Duanmu Quebec. I knew he was trying to provoke me with his words. I ignored him and turned around to go upstairs. Unexpectedly, Duanmu K grabbed my arm. I struggled and looked at Duanmu Quebec. "What are you doing?" "Don't touch me." Duanmu K didn't let go. He stared at me. The more I struggled, the tighter his grip. Duanmu K looked at me and said, "Xiaoli, tell me, did you sleep with Han Hao?" "Shut up. I'm not the kind of person you think I am. Let go of me." I pushed Duanmu K's chest as hard as I could, but he didn't let go of me. The two of us were so noisy that everyone in the house came out. Xiao Fengya looked at Duanmu K holding my arm. She quickly ran over to Duanmu K and said, K, let go of Xiaoli. Xiaoli is still very weak. You'll hurt her like this." Xinyao also ran downstairs. She looked at Duanmu K holding my arm. She pulled hard on Duanmu K's arm and shouted at him, "Brother, Let go of sister-in-law. Brother. You're too strong. If there's anything, we can talk about it. Don't hit me. Chapter 116. Duanmu Tachio also came out of the study. Seeing Duanmu K's barbaric appearance, he roared, K, let go of me. I glanced around. Only Yu Xian was standing on the stairs of the second floor, looking at us with a serious expression. Seeing that everyone had come out, Duanmu K let go of my hand and pushed me onto the sofa. My first reaction was to fear that something would happen to the baby in my belly. I hurriedly clutched my stomach. Luckily, there wasn't a lot of bleeding, and it didn't hurt. Xian Yao ran to my side and helped me up. Xiao Fengya also came to my side. Seeing me clutching my stomach, she whispered, Shaoli, what's wrong? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? I shook my head and raised my head to look at Duanmu K, who was looking at me with a serious expression. My heart didn't feel good. Was this still the man I loved so deeply? Why had he become so scary now? It was as if I couldn't remember his original appearance. Was this the real him? Thinking of this, I couldn't stop my tears from flowing down. I bent down to pick up the luggage that had been thrown on the floor. I turned to look at Xiao Fengya and Duanmu Tachio. Dad, Mom, I'm going upstairs. Xiao Fengya looked at me with a worried expression. Shaoli, you should go to Xian Yao's room and rest. If you feel uncomfortable, you must tell me. I nodded, picked up my luggage, and walked past Duanmu Quebec. I went straight upstairs to Xian Yao's room. Xian Yao followed me upstairs. As soon as we entered the room, I threw myself onto the bed and couldn't stop my tears. Xian Yao stayed by my side. She wanted to comfort me, but she didn't know what to say. Xian Yao gently patted my back. Sister-in-law, don't cry. Do you want to call Han Hao Gij? You're crying so hard, I don't know what to do. I shook my head. Because I was crying so hard, I didn't know what to say to her. I lay on the bed, crying very hard. Xian Yao quietly stayed by my side. At this moment, the door was pushed open. Duanmu K stood at the door. When Xian Yao saw him, she stood in front of me. Looking at Duanmu K, she asked, Brother, what are you doing? Duanmu K looked at me, who was lying on the bed. Then he looked at Xian Yao and said, You get out. Brother, this is my room. You can't come in. Get out. After Xian Yao said that, she pushed Duanmu K with all her strength. Duanmu K grabbed Xian Yao's arm and threw her towards the door. Xian Yao lost her balance and fell to the ground. She raised her head and screamed, Brother, you're too much. Get out. Before Xian Yao could finish, Duanmu K closed the door and locked it. Xian Yao banged on the door with all her strength, but Duanmu K didn't open the door for her. He let her scream herself hoarse. I was still lying on the bed. Although I knew I was in the same room as Duanmu K, I still didn't want to talk to him. I lay on the bed and didn't raise my head. I didn't cry anymore. I just lowered my head and closed my eyes. I didn't want to talk to him. Duanmu K reached out and held my face. His eyes were fixed on me. He looked at me and said, What's wrong? You ran away because you were in the wrong? I really regret not bringing you back last night. If I had brought you back, you wouldn't have smelled like another man. Do you know that? Seeing you in such a sorry state right now, I really want to tear you to pieces. I looked into Duanmu K's eyes and glared at him. Duanmu K, you're really unreasonable. I can't reason with you. Please get out. I don't want to talk to you. Duanmu K sneered. Reason? I'm telling you, I'm the reason. I can do whatever I want. I looked at Duanmu K's arrogant face and said fiercely, Why did you become like this? Why can't you listen to anything? Why do you always think that everything you think is right? Why can't you stand me? There are only 10 days left. Why don't we just have a peaceful divorce without disturbing each other? I also want a peaceful divorce, but what about you? We haven't divorced yet, but you've already started to hook up with another man. Moreover, he's my brother. So, it's not hard to imagine that you were already hooking up with another man when you were with me. You're being unreasonable. I shook off Duanmu-Kei's hand and looked at him fiercely. I'm asking you to leave. I don't want to see you. Bring forward the divorce date. I've had enough of these days. Duanmu-Kei, I used to love you very much. But now, I don't love you at all. After saying this, my tears couldn't stop flowing. Duanmu-Kei looked at me. His eyes were fixed, but his expression immediately became very serious. He kept looking at me, but he didn't say anything. He reached out and picked me up. He opened the door and walked to our bedroom. Xinyao was standing at the door. She saw Duanmu-Kei carrying me. I was still crying. She knew that I wasn't willing. She grabbed Duanmu-Kei's arm and said to him, "Brother, let go of her. I beg you. Don't hurt her any more. Okay?" Duanmu-Kei stopped and looked at Xinyao. "Let go. I know what I'm doing." "What do you mean what you're doing? Didn't you say that you wouldn't bully my sister-in-law? Aren't you still bullying her? Your words can't be trusted anymore. Brother, let go of her." Xinyao pulled Duanmu-Kei's arm with all her strength. She wanted to save me. Duanmu-Kei swung his arm and shook Xinyao off. He looked at Xinyao and said, "I'll say it again. I said, I know what I'm doing. We won't eat lunch or dinner. When it's time, I'll have the nanny send 2 servings to my room. Also, if you dare to bring Han Hao over, I'll destroy their house." "Xinyao, don't let Han Hao come over. Don't." Before I could finish speaking, Duanmu-Kei carried me into the room and closed the bedroom door. I don't know if Xinyao understood my meaning. If she really did call Han Hao over, with Duanmu-Kei's temper, he would definitely be at odds with them. Duanmu-Kei carried me into the room and placed me directly on the bed. Strangely, he didn't throw me this time. Just as I was about to struggle to sit up, he pressed me down on the bed. His upper body was on top of me and his face was very close to mine. His eyes were fixed on me. I didn't know what he was looking at so intently. I felt really uncomfortable, so I turned my head away and didn't look at him in the eye. Unexpectedly, he turned my face and forced me to look at him. I put my hands in front of my chest and used all my strength to push his chest. However, he was too strong and I couldn't move him even after pushing for a long time. "Don't struggle. It's useless. I just want to look at you like this." Duanmu-Kei's tone suddenly became very gentle. Chapter 117. I didn't know why, but when I heard Duanmu-Kei say that, my heart suddenly felt a little excited. I gradually relaxed my struggle and let Duanmu-Kei lie on top of me and look at me. I didn't move and just quietly lay in his arms. I was afraid that he would lose his temper and do something to hurt me. Hurting me wasn't a big deal, but hurting my child was what I was really afraid of. Duanmu-Kei was on top of me, his eyes fixed on me. At that moment, I suddenly felt that he was back. I was a little excited and couldn't help but reach out and hug him tightly. Tears flowed down the corners of my eyes. I hugged him and said softly, "Xiao Kei, is that you? Are you back?" Duanmu-Kei didn't say anything. He just hugged me tightly. I couldn't control my tears and cried even harder. We hugged each other for a while before Duanmu-Kei let go of me. He lifted his head to look at me. His gaze was really one that I was familiar with. I saw it very clearly. At that moment, I was happy. It seemed that he was still in my heart. Just as I was intoxicated by seeing Duanmu-Kei's original appearance, Duanmu-Kei sneered. That cold expression woke me up. I realized that he hadn't changed back to his original appearance. I let go of his arms and turned my face to the side, not looking at his face. Duanmu-Kei reached out and adjusted my face. He stared into my eyes and said, "Women are cheap. You're holding one person in your arms, but you're thinking of another person in your heart. Tell me, how cheap are you? I looked at Duanmu K's mocking expression and became very angry. I stared at Duanmu K and reached out my hand to push him. I looked at him and said, Duanmu K, I didn't force you to torture me, and I didn't do anything wrong to anyone. I admit that after you decided to divorce me, I chose to accept Han Hao because I knew that Han Hao was sincere to me. I also believed that he would treat me well. That's right. You didn't want me first, so you can't control my future choices. Duanmu K cupped my face and said, Yes, you're not wrong. It's true that I don't want you anymore. But you better understand that only when the divorce agreement is completed can it be considered a real divorce. You, Lang Yu Li, are still my wife. Duanmu K said this word by word to me in a methodical manner. I looked at Duanmu K and sneered. I said to him, Okay. I can live as your wife during this time. But I sincerely hope that you can treat me politely. I don't want to have any conflict with you. Why don't we part ways peacefully? Duanmu K looked at me. He reached out and touched my waist. I didn't know what he wanted to do. Did he already know that I was pregnant? Duanmu K touched my waist. He looked at me and said, Okay. Since you are my, Duanmu K's, wife, you should do what a wife should do. Duanmu K moved his hand from my waist to my legs. Gradually, his hand reached my inner thigh. I reached out and grabbed his hand. Duanmu K stopped. He looked at me, his eyes still sharp. He looked at me and said, What? Just now you said that you would do what a wife should do. What about now? What do you mean by doing this? Are you going back on your words? I knew that I couldn't have sex with him now. I didn't have a choice. But if I didn't choose a suitable reason, Duanmu K might force himself on me. I thought about it. I looked at Duanmu K and said, No, you can't do it. Why? Duanmu K looked at me with a puzzled expression. His gaze made it seem like I was trying to escape. I grabbed Duanmu K's hand tightly and said, I really can't. I just had my period last night. I can't have sex with you. Duanmu K looked at me and thought for a while. He moved his hand away from my leg. Then he looked at me and said, Okay, I will believe you this time. He moved his hand away from me. I sighed softly. Luckily, the crisis was over for now. I sat up on the bed, grabbed a jacket and put it on. Then, I walked to the door. Duanmu K looked at me and asked, Where are you going? I stopped and said, I'm not leaving. I'm going downstairs to take a look at the garden. I paused. Then I continued, See what you've done to the flower pond. Then, I turned around and left the room. I walked down the stairs, through the living room, out of the house, and into the garden. When I reached a familiar place, I was surprised by what I saw. It was very different from what I had imagined. The rose pond was no longer there. When I had torn it down, the ground had been a mess. Now, it was gone. The ground was clean, and there was only an empty flower pond. The rattan chair next to it was still there. After the argument, Duanmu K didn't really tear down the flower pond. Just as I was looking at the current scene and imagining what it had been like in the past, a voice came from behind a big tree in the depths of the garden. There's nothing left. What do you want to see here? I turned my head and looked in the direction of the voice. A figure came out from behind the tree. It was none other than Yu Xian. I wasn't surprised to see her. Yu Xian saw me and walked towards me. She stopped in front of me and looked me up and down. Then she looked at me and said, You've become haggard. You must have had a hard time recently. Was it because you were tortured by Duanmu Gage, or because you were sandwiched between two men? I looked at Yu Xian and sneered. Yu Xian, it's useless to play these tricks with me now. I've already talked with Duanmu Quebec. We will divorce peacefully in 10 days. Nothing will happen. That way, you can be together with your Duanmu Gage openly. Isn't that what you wanted? That's right. I should thank you for your concession. I remember when you first entered the Duanmu family, I warned you that it wasn't easy to be the daughter-in-law of the Duanmu family. Did you think that the Duanmu K you fell in love with was his true personality? You were wrong. The current him is the most authentic him. You may not be able to accept this fact, but no matter who he is the man I love the most. Haha, I can only congratulate you. Congratulations on achieving your goal. I can only wish the two of you happiness. Duanmu K and I are no longer possible. Of course, he is no longer a threat to you. I looked at you, Xian. I didn't know why, but when I said those words, my heart ached. However, there were no tears. Sometimes, when you love someone too deeply, you can't even feel the pain. Chapter 118. Xian looked at me and sneered. She looked at me and said, "Thank you, but there's something I need to tell you." Xian moved closer to my ear and whispered, "When you weren't home yesterday, Duanmu Gij was with me the entire time. Did you know that? He only becomes especially gentle when he's with me, especially when he's hugging me and…" "Forget it, I won't tell you. It's useless to tell you anyway. You two are about to get divorced." Xian let out an ear-piercing laugh next to my ear. I took a step back and looked at her smug expression. I tried to control myself and not get angry. I calmed down and looked at Xian. "That's good. I wish you happiness." I turned around and prepared to leave the garden. Xian called out to me from behind. "Cold Glaze, you're not the same as before. I'm sure Duanmu K has pretty much wiped out your Miss Cold Glaze's temper. If you know what's good for you, don't try to cause any more trouble in the remaining 10 days. It's useless. You can't get Duanmu K's heart anymore." I stopped and turned around to look at Xian. I sneered and said to her, "Duanmu K doesn't have me in his heart anymore, and I don't have him in my heart anymore. You don't have to worry about it. I won't disturb your future with Duanmu Quebec." Then I turned around and walked out of the garden. As soon as I left the garden, I saw Suri walking in through the gate. I looked at him and saw that his expression was very serious. When he saw me, he quickly walked in front of me. His serious expression didn't change. I looked at him with a puzzled expression and asked softly, "What's wrong? What's with this expression?" "I just received a call from Xinyao. She told me that Duanmu K was rough with you again." I immediately rushed over from the Lang residence. "Are you all right?" Suri looked me up and down. When he saw that I didn't have any external injuries, he sighed. "I'm fine. I just talked to him. We'll divorce peacefully. In the remaining 10 days, no one will hurt the other." Suri sighed and looked at me. "That's good. As long as you're fine." Xinyao was crying when she called me. Did Duanmu K get rough with her? She was crying very sadly. I don't know how she is. I looked at Suri's worried expression and felt that something wasn't right. I thought for a moment and suddenly understood. This brat probably fell in love with that girl, Xinyao. I decided to sound him out. I looked at Suri and said, "I think so." Xinyao was trying to protect me. She used all her strength to pull Duanmu K, but Duanmu K seemed to have directly thrown her to the ground. I don't know if she's hurt. I glanced at Suri. Hearing my words, he became more and more worried. What? It can't be. She's still a girl, and she's Duanmu K's little sister. How could he be so heavy-handed to his own little sister? No, I have to go check on her. If she's hurt anywhere, I have to hurry and take her to the hospital. After saying that, Su Rui was about to rush into the house. I reached out and grabbed his arm. "Don't get too excited," I said. "You're a big man. How can you casually enter a young lady's boudoir?" Suri's face immediately turned red. He suddenly looked at me blankly. "What should I do? Young lady, please help me. Help me check on her condition. Please." Suri's big eyes sparkled as he begged me. Looking at his adorable appearance, I couldn't help but laugh. I felt that the time had come. I should be able to get something out of his mouth. I looked at Su Rui and said, That's easy, but you have to answer a few of my questions. If I'm satisfied with your answers, I'll help you. Su Rue thought for a moment and then nodded. What do you think of that girl, Xinyao? I didn't dare to ask the main question, so I asked a more off-topic one. Suri thought for a moment and said, when I first met her, I always felt that she was a princess. But after interacting with her for a long time, I discovered that she wasn't that kind of girl. Although her personality is rather straightforward, she has a very good heart. When President Duanmu K's condition had just stabilized in the hospital, she heard that my little sister was also in the same hospital. She especially bought a lot of gifts to visit my little sister. My little sister really likes her, and said that Xinyao was the most beautiful big sister she had ever seen. Then if Xinyao didn't have that kind of background, would you still think that she's that good? I gradually got closer to the main topic and asked a more direct question. This has nothing to do with her background. This has nothing to do with her background. She's lively, cheerful, and outspoken. Although sometimes she's very headstrong, she would never do anything that would hurt others. There are a lot of things that she has to shoulder by herself. Seeing her so tired, my heart also feels bad. Including that day when Han Hao took you away, Duanmu K had the intention to rush towards me, but was stopped by Xinyao. She stood in front of Duanmu K and let me drive him away. Growing up, I've been protected by two women, one is you, the other is her. Her pure eyes have always emitted positive energy. Listening to Su Rue's praise of Xinyao, I'm already 70% sure that he has feelings for her. Last question. I looked at Suri and asked, do you like her? Do you want to be with her? Hearing my question, Suri stared blankly for a moment, then lowered his head. He didn't answer. I poked him and asked, answer. Why aren't you saying anything? Suri still didn't answer. He must have some misgivings in his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have answered so unhappily. Hurry up and answer. I pretended to be angry and roared at Suri. Suri raised his head and looked at me with a troubled expression. But when he saw my expectant eyes, he sighed and sneered. She and I are not people from the same world. Even if I like her, we can't be together. How could she like someone who couldn't be more ordinary? After hearing Suri's words, I understood. He liked Xinyao. But because of the difference in status, he felt that there was a certain gap between him and Xinyao. He didn't dare to pursue the matter with Xinyao. I gently patted Suri's shoulder and said, you think too much. Everyone is equal in love. It has nothing to do with status or identity. I understand, but who doesn't want to give their beloved woman a happy home? Even the place I'm living in now is a house that Hong Ming Association lent to me. It's already good that they don't charge me rent. The entire area of the house is probably not even as big as a guest room in the Duanmu family. If I were a father, I wouldn't be willing to marry my precious daughter to a pauper. Chapter 119. I looked at Suri and patted his shoulder. You can't be considered a pauper. Right now, you can be considered a Red Ming Hui bodyguard. Your income isn't bad. After I finish my business, I'll arrange for Uncle Bai to buy you a house. Consider it your employment fee. What do you think? Suri stared at me blankly. His expression suddenly became very downcast. He looked at me and said, thank you, young Mississippi. You've already taken care of me and my sister. I can't accept this condition. Being your bodyguard is also to repay you for taking care of us. Silly. If I give you a house and a car, you can slowly save up money to buy it. It should be very fast. Only then will you have the financial foundation to pursue Xinyao. Therefore, you must accept these conditions. I also think highly of you. If Xinyao likes you, I sincerely hope that the two of you can walk together. I patted Suri's shoulder to give him some encouragement. Suri sighed and looked at me. But no matter how hard I try, the gap between Xinyao and I will never reach the same level. Therefore, no matter what, thank you, young miss, for your kind intentions. I will still silently like her in my heart. Perhaps she will be able to find a good man who is more suitable for her. Perhaps it was an illusion, but I felt that Suri's eyes contained a bit of helplessness. I put down my hand and looked at him. I felt that this wasn't the fearless and indomitable Suri I first met. I tilted my head and looked at Suri. Ah, Suri, why do I feel like you've changed? You weren't this hesitant before. Why are you so submissive now? If you like her, then go after her. Why are you thinking about so many messy things? This was the first time I had lectured Suri. Perhaps my tone was a bit harsh, because Suri didn't raise his head to look at me. He lowered his head and said to me, "Young miss, you haven't experienced the life of us poor people. I know that you and Uncle Bai are very good to me. I also know that you and Xinyao have always treated me as a good friend. You have never treated me as a servant. But the more you treat me like this, the more inferior I feel in my heart. I always feel that with my status, I don't deserve to walk together with you, let alone express my feelings for Xinyao." Hearing Suri's words, I immediately thought of you Xin. She didn't come from a noble family, but her love for Duanmu K had never changed. She would even hurt others just to stand by Duanmu K's side. Looking at Suri's pained expression, I didn't know what to say. I patted his shoulder and said, "Let's talk about this later. There are still 10 days before my divorce. You should move here for the next few days. I'll ask Mom to arrange a guest room for you. You can stay here with peace of mind. You can also see Xinyao every day. Is that okay?" Suri scratched his head embarrassedly. Looking at his flushed face, he said, "How could I trouble you, young miss?" Although Suri said that, he was very happy in his heart. I glanced at him, patted his head, and said to him, Don't do anything to hurt Xinyao. She's my best friend now, I can't bear to let others bully her. Young miss, don't worry. I swear I'll treat her well." Suri gave me a funny salute. Looking at his funny face, I couldn't help but pat his forehead again. Suri and I returned to the house. I first went to greet Duanmu Tochio and Xiao Fengya. I told them that Suri wanted to stay with the Duanmu family until my divorce with the Duanmu K was finalized. They agreed. I called the nanny to help Suri settle down. Then, I went upstairs to find Xinyao. According to the nanny, ever since the morning, Xinyao had locked herself in her room and hadn't come out. It seemed the Duanmu K's actions had affected her greatly. I went to Xinyao's room and gently knocked on the door. No one answered, so I knocked again. I leaned against the door and heard the sound of someone waking up. Then, I heard Xinyao's hoarse voice. "Who is it?" I sighed. Luckily, Xinyao didn't have any accidents. I softly said to the door, "Girl, it's me. I'm Xiao Li." I leaned against the door and heard the sound of someone getting out of bed. Then, I heard light footsteps. Not long after, the bedroom door was opened a crack. Xinyao peeked through the crack in the door. When she saw that it was me, her eyes turned red. I could clearly see that her eyes were glistening with tears. "Sister-in-law, I'm not feeling well. I want to rest for a while, so I won't let you come in. If I get sick and you get infected, it won't be good." Finished speaking, Xinyao closed the door. I quickly held the door open. I looked at Xinyao and said, "Be good. I'll stay with you for a while." Xinyao hesitated, but in the end, she compromised. She opened the door, and I saw her messy long hair. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and she didn't have any makeup on. She looked dispirited. Xinyao's arm had 2 or 3 abrasions of varying degrees. My heart ached as I looked at her. She had gotten hurt because she wanted to protect me. I pulled Xinyao into the room and closed the door. Then, I pulled Xinyao to the bed and sat down. I glanced at the wound on her arm. Perhaps it was because she was too sad that she hadn't treated it yet. I went to the cabinet and rummaged through the medicine box in her room. I found an alcohol cotton ball and gently rubbed it on her wound. Perhaps it was because of the shock, but Xinyao's expression was pained, and tears streamed down her face. I raised my head and looked at her. Worried, I asked, "Is it too painful?" I'll be gentle. Xinyao shook her head and bit her lip. I comforted her. Hold on a little longer. It'll be fine soon. I took care of her wounds. After bandaging them, I took a tissue and wiped the tears on her face. Xinyao cried for a long time. Her face was full of tear stains. It took me a long time to wipe them clean. She was also very well behaved. She sat there obediently and looked at me with her beautiful big eyes. After treating her face and her wounds, I stood up and began to comb her hair. I didn't know how she tortured herself, but her hair was a mess. I combed her hair bit by bit, afraid that I would hurt her. Xinyao peeked at me in the mirror and smiled. Then, she looked at me with embarrassment. Sister-in-law, is it hard to do? I'll do it myself. I shook my head and looked at her. Let me do it. I've never combed your hair before. This time, I'll give you a beautiful hairstyle. Xinyao looked at me and smiled. Why do I need it to be so beautiful? Chapter 120. I slowly combed Xinyao's hair. I looked at her in the mirror and said, Little Xinyao, thank you. Thank you for working so hard to protect me today. Xinyao reached out to cover her wound. Then she looked at me and said, It's nothing, sister-in-law. As long as you're fine, and my brother doesn't use violence against you, I'm satisfied. These small wounds are nothing. While I combed Xinyao's hair, I asked, Little Xinyao, do you still like Han Hao? Xinyao raised her head and looked at me in the mirror. Then, she shook her head and said, I don't like him anymore. Seeing you and Gij Han Hao together makes me very happy. As long as you and Gij Han Hao are happy together, I will naturally be very, very happy. I gently stroked Xinyao's hair and said, Silly girl, I know what you're thinking, but we also want you to be happy. We also want you to find a boy who can accompany you for the rest of your life. Xinyao smiled and pouted at the mirror. She foolishly acted cute. Then she said, I know. I'm also looking slowly. There's no need to rush. I'll meet someone who suits me sooner or later. Xinyao's expression was somewhat dignified. I combed her hair and then sat next to her. Looking at her, I said, Xinyao, what kind of man are you looking for? I'll help you look around and see if there's anyone around me. This was also what I wanted to know. I wanted to see if Suri could meet her requirements. Xinyao's eyes turned. Then she looked at me and said, I want to find a tall, thin, handsome, and stylish rich second-generation heir. Of course, he must have good taste. No matter if it's in terms of clothing or lifestyle, he must be the same as me. I looked at Xinyao. Although she said that, her expression was still very dignified. I looked at her and asked, Is this what you really want? Xinyao looked at me and then lowered her head. In a soft voice she said, Sister-in-law, it's not like that. I just want to find someone who can be with me forever. Someone who doesn't think too much. Someone who simply loves me and wants to be with me forever. Someone who simply treats me well. Hearing Xinyao's words, I suddenly felt that Suri still had a chance. I asked, Then, does your true feelings have anything to do with your identity, status, family background, or job? Xinyao shook her head and said to me, Sister-in-law, you also know that my status is like this. Compared to other girls, I'm already very superior since birth. I also have a stable job, and the income from this job is enough for me to live anywhere. Therefore, I don't need to rely on a man to provide for me at all. On the contrary, I can even take care of him. The meaning of what I'm saying is just like the vows that many people make when they get married. No matter if they're poor or rich, they'll continue to walk down this path. What I want is this kind of love. Although it's easy to say, there are many boys around me, but if they're not too much of a scumbag, then they're too cowardly to approach me. Listening to Xinyao's nagging, I suddenly felt that I was very lucky to be able to find my true love. Indeed, for a girl with such good conditions like Xinyao, it really wasn't easy to find someone that was truly suitable for her. While I was thinking, Xinyao looked at me with a puzzled expression. Sister-in-law, why are you asking me this question today? This little girl's intuition was very sharp. I shook my head and said, nothing. We're just chatting. Chatting. No, you're hiding something from me. Hurry up and tell me. If you don't tell me, I'm going to use my trump card. Saying that, Xinyao stretched out her hand and looked at me with a lecherous expression. I knew that her trump card was going to attack my chest. I subconsciously hugged my chest and shook my head. I was wrong. I'll tell you. Please let me go. Saying that, Xinyao put down her hand and obediently sat in front of me. She looked at me and said, okay, tell me. I'm all ears. I coughed and looked at Xinyao. It's like this. Actually, I do have a boy like the one you're talking about. It's just that. Listening to the first part of the story, Xinyao seemed fine. But when she heard it was just that, her expression changed. She looked at me and said, just what? It's just that he has low self-esteem. He always feels that there's a big gap between you and him. He can't catch up to you, so he dares to love you, but doesn't dare to say anything. I described Suri's current state to Xinyao. Dares to love, but doesn't dare to say anything? Who? Do I know him? How come I don't remember such a person? Xinyao racked her brain, but couldn't think of anything. After thinking for a while, she looked at me and said, Sister-in-law, I still can't think of who he is. Tell me, I'll see if I know him. I put my hands on Xinyao's shoulders and said, Xinyao, I'll tell you. You'd better keep it a secret, because he didn't want me to tell you that he likes you. Xinyao nodded vigorously. Okay, don't worry. It'll be a secret. I leaned close to Xinyao's ear and whispered, you know the person who likes you. It's Suri. After saying that, I sat across from Xinyao and carefully observed her reaction. Xinyao stared blankly for a moment. Her eyes widened, and then she clutched her stomach and laughed loudly. She laughed until tears flowed out. I was shocked by her strange reaction. With a dark expression, I stood in front of her and asked, what's wrong? Why are you laughing so happily? Xinyao did her best to control herself from laughing. She tried several times but failed. She no longer had the appearance of a young lady. I could only sit in front of her in a mess, looking at her as if there was nothing left to live for. After a while, she recovered a little and gradually stopped laughing. She raised her head to look at me and said, Sister-in-law, is this true? I nodded and looked at her. It's true. I just don't understand why you laughed so happily when you heard his name. Xinyao tidied her hair and then looked at me. Actually, I guessed it was him, but I didn't dare to say it. I just thought that such a cold and arrogant person like him wouldn't dare to say it. It's not like him at all. That's why I laughed. After hearing Xinyao's words, I suddenly felt that it made sense. How could such a cold and arrogant person like Suri be a yes-man? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Xinyao saw me laugh, so she also laughed. The two of us sat face to face and laughed until our stomachs cramped. After laughing for a while, the two of us finally calmed down. I forced myself to climb onto Xinyao's bed. She lay down next to me. The two of us stared blankly at the ceiling. I looked at her and asked, honestly, what do you think of Suri? You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.